Hello, hello, welcome, welcome. Now, I know everyone is thinking that I'm trolling with the opening topic, and yes, it's a bit of a troll. Obviously, I don't think George R. R. Martin ever intended. Um, what what on earth? Oh, it's this. Oh, there we go. People are like, "Where's the mess up?" There it was. Um, But this, of course, this is one of those things with is Osha Robb's wife? Well, this is something that George just didn't think about. There are a lot of like things that George puts in that he didn't really think all the way through, and it's just for a number of reasons. So like obviously like the concept of wildlings being married if the woman is kidnapped is on itself a silly kind of concept, considering that like in war women are conquered, like captured all the time. You can't just have everyone be married, yeah, if you're captured and that kind of stuff. And clearly George R. R. Martin was making a statement about marriage, specifically. He's making a statement about arranged marriage, but he's largely making a statement about marriage in general. Even though George has been married twice, he's not the biggest fan of marriage, and his writing kind of reflects uh, it. He kind of compares it to some sort of odd ownership commodification of sex. Um, he did get married to his current wife Paris, but it's probably because he can collect Social Security. It's like a money thing. His first marriage didn't go so well. Divorced after a few years. He was a big hippie, and the hippies were against marriage and stuff like this. Um, and so the idea is that like, oh, this situation with the wildlings, which is clearly rape, um, where you're kidnapping women and sleeping with them, and but then again, if unwillingness or the lack of choice in your partner is what defines like rape, then isn't arranged marriage rape? How is it better? Someone is unwillingly being coerced into by their family and such, and the legal structure in order to have sex with somebody else. And clearly, like George is just trying to get a rise out of us, because Egret's like, what, this kidnapping system is fantastic. I get strong whelp and all of that kind of crap. He clearly is trying to get a rise out of us, but it's of course that was all established in a Clash of Kings, but Osha is a rather poorly thought out character from a Game of Thrones. And so in a Game of Thrones, Robb obviously like um, uh, is in the woods. They Bran gets attacked, and he and Theon end up like saving his brother and stopping these wildling and Night's Watch deserters, and ends up capturing Osha. So under wildling tradition, like Osha should consider Robb her husband, though she never mentions it at all. Instead, she starts sleeping with Gage the cook, um, and that's it. It's never brought up. But would she be, um, you know, under wildling tradition, isn't she the widow of Robb, and wouldn't she be queen in the north and all of these sorts of jokey things? No, because well, George just didn't think this out. The Osha plot from a Game of Thrones is really quite poorly thought out. It doesn't make any sense. When Robb finds her, she has she is south of the wall somehow with three Night's Watch deserters and some other wildlings. Stiv, one of the Night's Watch guys, is sleeping with her, and there's no explanation to why the Night's Watch people decide to desert. There's no explanation to how they got to the other side of the wall, how they got, the Black Gate or something that they climb over. Never explained. Um, Also, the things that Osha says don't line up with anything else in the story. So she gives this backstory on Mance, which completely contradicts like the story that we hear about Mance later on his origins. You know, she claims that he's not really a wildling and things like that, and people don't consider him a wildling, while no wildling ever brings this up later. They, you know, all the other wildlings are like, no, he's great. Meanwhile, she's against Mance's gathering, which because she thinks that Mance is going to fight the White Walkers. That she paints Mance's like gathering as they're going to fight the White Walkers and why this is stupid and I'm going to flee south. When in fact, like we find out that Mance's gathering is to run away from the White Walkers, which is what Osha is doing. So it's quite, the whole thing doesn't really make any sense, and we don't get an explanation on like why the Night's Watch guys would go along with this. Like, you could say maybe Stiv was doing it for the sex, but he's the only one that seems to be sleeping with Osha. Everybody else, if they're, are they scared of the White Walkers? Because none of the rest, you know, the rest of the Night's Watch doesn't really have any fear yet of the others. They seem clueless, and yet these three guys are fleeing south, like Garrett, you know? And, you know, George clearly put it in at the time because he was trying to build up, like, oh my gosh, this White Walker threat is coming. And he's in a Game of Thrones and he thinks this is going to be 3 books. And he thinks that, like, oh, I've got to, like, keep the tension. He needed a wildling voice to introduce Mance Rayder more, to create more tension of the White Walkers are coming, and then he started delaying and didn't know what he was doing with it, and so like Osha's like introduction is largely just retconned out. It's never like everything that she mentions about Mance and the White Walkers and his mission and the burning desire for people to flee and the coming of the White Walkers is kind of, you know, just out of there. It's irrelevant. So, but you know, she's also like, you know, Queen of the North now. So because she's Robb's widow. So, but there it is. So let's see. What else is kind of interesting here? Hold on. I'm on my Osha's patch face. I hear Preston, but Natalie Tina is hot. She is. She is. In every nation there are discontents. It's true, but we don't hear any other like word of it. We don't hear any you know, there should be like grumblings and other people talking about this stuff. Would the story have been better if Osha was replaced with Val, who fled south and was defeated by Robb? She could have taken Rickon to Mance and fled to battle to Skagos or Hardhome. Probably almost anybody would have been better. I mean, George himself admits that his Osha was a little vacant, and that he preferred even show Osha and what she added to the character. He didn't really know what to do with her, which is why like Osha disappears. I mean, she largely just disappears. She this is a woman that was fearing for her life from the White Walkers, and then she decides to travel back north to Skagos with Rickon. Like, this is a woman that was fleeing south, doing whatever she was. She was a coward. She was like, mercy, mercy, mercy to Robb and all this, right? She's like a frightened woman. And then all of a sudden George about faces her and is like, nah, you know what? She's this like fighting spear wife, and she's gonna lead in a Game of Thrones, she's this cowering person who goes to the wildling's enemy, the Night's Watch, starts sleeping with one of the Night's Watchmen because she's so scared of dying and wanted his protection, flees south, when all of her friends are killed, immediately is like, "Oh, mercy, mercy," and completely starts working for Robb and Winterfell, um, even though they slaughtered all of her only friends, and then like takes Robb's brother and decides to go like north to Skagos. Like the woman, though, there's nothing that makes sense about Osha. Like, so yeah, like could it have been Val or anybody else and then would have like advanced the story a little bit? Yes. Like George didn't know what to do with Osha. He doesn't know what to do with Rickon either. But, somebody asked earlier if I think like Rickon is a Shaggy Dog story, and because his direwolf was a Shaggy Dog. And a Shaggy, I don't think that's what George was thinking about. The problem with these kind of like, and this is kind of a big long like many years like fan headcanon kind of theory, is they don't really think through the like what these concepts are. Like a Shaggy Dog story is more than just a story that has a pointless ending. Like a Shaggy Dog story is when you tell a joke and you just go on and on with like just these inane details, and you're building and you're building and you're like, oh my gosh. And then they went to the the world championship of Shaggy Dogs, and man, all the different dogs there were so shaggy. And there were Shaggy Dogs from Russia, and there were Shaggy Dogs from Australia, and there were Shaggy Dogs from Japan, and everyone looked at it. It's stuff like that. That's the Shaggy Dog story. It's not just a story that has a pointless ending. Like you have to add all these details in. So for Rickon's story to be a Shaggy Dog story, we would have had to have some details about Rickon, and we have nothing about Rickon. There's nothing that resembles a Shaggy Dog story in Rickon's story. We have Rickon disappearing in a Clash of Kings, and then a dream about some unicorns. And that's it. That's not a Shaggy Dog story. Even if it ends up being pointless, that's not what a Shaggy Dog story is. These it's like these things where just people don't like think through like what things are. Like when people compare Quentin to like a hero's journey, and I was like, that's not what a hero's journey is. Like the hero's journey, there's like a mentor and and all these different like aspects. And it's like there's no resemblance between what Quentin goes through and a hero's journey. Like just like taking one step back and being like, well, let's define our terms. What's a Shaggy Dog story? Well, a Shaggy Dog story is a story that has a bunch of inane details that goes on forever, that builds the listener up to some sort of like grand climax that is no grand climax. The hero's journey story is has a bunch of different elements to it. Like that, it's not just a journey that has a hero in it. There's a lot more to it. So, because then everything is a hero's journey. I'm sorry if I'm derailing the topics, but would increasing the funding for the Winds project speed up the release of the chapters? Unfortunately, because this is fan fiction, everything related to the Winds of Winter fan fiction project is there's no money attached to it. I don't monetize those videos. I none of the editors or people that submit receive money. I spend countless hours on this stuff for free. Like it's so, and that's the whole thing with copyright. Like if you're selling a product that's owned by somebody else, that's a copyright violation. But there's no like selling of this. Like the chapters are public domain. Anyone can use them. I don't own them. There is no earning of money. So you say like, can you increase funding when that speed things up? I'm sorry, but like I can't take money related to the project. Like, it's it can't be like monetized like this, and so that's just so it's just it goes the speed it goes, like the people that submit, the editors, like it's how much time people have, and so you know I'm I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is. Um, let's see. Can others swim? We don't know. We don't know if others swim. Um, Osha realizes the Stark kids are touched by the old gods, and she helps them. Easy retcon. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think there's things that could have been added to make it safe. Maybe Skagos is safer because it's an island. Yeah, I mean, she should have. I forget what she actually says. Does she have any mention of like where she? Because it seems like she takes a bunch of orders from Lewin off screen, so we don't really know what Lewin says to her. It's definitely mystery box. Hello, hello. How are you?
Okay. Okay, I was listening in the back, and I just ran upstairs. Just to, I'm not. I'm gonna come. I'm gonna hop on back later. To the guy who said if donating will increase the speed of the chapters, donate to me, and I will bother him to increase the speed of the chapters. That's patreon.com/Red Team Review. REDTA. You guys get the picture. I will press. I'll see you later. I'm just making.
Yeah. The Shaggy Dog story is a red herring. No, that's not what a Shaggy Dog story. Have you ever heard the Shaggy Dog joke? The Shaggy Dog, like, I've heard. First of all, I used to go to camp when I was young, so like I've heard every stupid joke in the world. Like, the whole thing about like guy's car breaks down and he asks the farmer to stay in his barn for the night, and there's 3 holes in the wall, and he sticks his dick in the first hole and it feels really good. He sticks his dick in the second hole. I mean, I've heard all these jokes, okay? I've heard every fucking joke in the world from camp. I know what the Shaggy Dog story is. It's not just a red herring, okay? Shaggy Dog story is a very specific joke that goes on and on and on with all these little details. On and on and on. If you just tell a red herring, that's not a Shaggy Dog joke. That's not a Shaggy Dog joke at all. How you doing, Carmine? Carmine, you alive? Did you just die? I think he dropped out. He dropped out right after that. Hi Preston, huge fan. Since the first Pink Letter video, it's a long time ago, I used your theory videos to fall asleep at night. In all of your travels, what's the best restaurant or meal you've ever eaten or had? Hello. Will, how's it going?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm here. What's happening?
Not too much. I'm Carmine now. I'm jumping in his place.
We're joined by Will. Will is one of our editors. So he takes the chapters and makes them more beautiful.
True.
You're like you're like a makeup artist.
Yeah. Same bones, but nicer looking skin.
Yeah. So how do you think the Bravo turned out?
Great. There's a lot of just really good stuff in there. Even before I got to it, which is saying something.
That's good. It was. I'm surprised we pulled it off. It was just like so long with so many aspects to it, and essentially two stories in one.
More like that, Preston.
What's that?
Cut them down. It was too long.
It was too long. The second time we had a chapter that was way too long.
Yeah.
We dealt with this with the Elaine chapter as well, where we just had to like cut stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And And people say like, oh, George, he's increasing his chapter length, and that's true. George's chapter length, like I think in a Game of Thrones, his chapter length average was like 4,000 something, and his chapter length average, like I think in A Feast for Crows, it gets like 6,000 something. But when you're in the 9,000 something, it's a little different.
Yeah. And I know you don't want to do 2 chapters ever. You want to get this done, not put it off. But
yeah, I mean, I think
at a certain point, you're like,
I think that has a lot to do with like the impact of having a good ending, and it's like so much work to like have a good ending to a chapter that I'd like to leave people like punched in the stomach with a good chapter ending. And to like, we just got to keep going. We just got to keep going. We got to move the plot.
yeah, that's the main thing. We gotta move on.
Yeah, we can't be like George. And it's true that like George himself, not every chapter does has a great ending. Not every chapter is he didn't shit gold, or whatever. Some are quite forgettable, but I think all of our sample chapters have had very, very like powerful endings, which I quite like, and I couldn't think about like just cutting it in the middle and being like, that's.
Yeah, they've all been pretty plot heavy, so there hasn't been just one that's like a character thinking to himself for a long time, and then that can just kind of end without anything major dropping in the plot.
Yeah. So I don't know. So,
real quick before you move on to questions, I had a request,
sure,
either to you or to fanfic writers. So you were talking about songs last week.
Yeah.
And I have a quote, if I can find it. Yeah, I wrote it down. It's from the first Theon chapter in the Clash of Kings. He says, "War was an Iron Man's proper trade. The drowned god had made them to reave and rape, to carve out kingdoms and write their names in fire and blood and song." So Theon is talking about song as being part of the Ironborn culture there, right at the beginning.
Huh.
So what are Ironborn songs? I want an Ironborn song somewhere in this fanfic. If we can squeeze it in.
That's so funny. Fire. Oh my gosh. It's such a good idea, because let's carve out the kingdoms and write their names in fire.
Did we ever get a single Ironborn song? No, right? I looked.
That's clearly one of those things that like George wrote in there and then like forgot about.
Oh yeah, big time. But we should do it.
I mean, it's good timing because so right now I'm putting together like the editors are looking at the Victorian chapter, the Victorian sample chapter, and it's kind of on the short side, like unlike the Bravo.
If you have a song you want to submit it. We can get it to the editors and somehow thread it in to beef up this chapter. That's my plea to everyone listening.
Oh gosh, so the Victorian, so for people that don't know, like George had a Victorian sample chapter, and he read it the full thing once, way back in the day. But we don't have a copy of the full Victorian sample chapter, but we have a copy of the first half of the Victorian sample chapter, which is Victorian. He's thinking about going to war, and then he goes downstairs with the three thralls, and he tells them about how they're going to blow the horn once, and then they leave. And apparently the second half is then this horrible, like weird sexual scene where like Victorian with a bloody hand like fingers the dusky woman. And then he goes up on deck and he gives a rousing speech, and then they head to battle. Like the editors and we've been like I think we've made a horrible enough like scene. I don't know if you've read it yet, Will, but the
I've been busy. I'll get to it.
Oh my gosh, it's just like it's just so uncomfortable because I feel like we are like one of the editors mentioned it, like we've been pretty heavy on the like the abuse to women thing, and I was like, yeah, I mean George is so heavy on it, but he's
I've taken steps, I'm sure you are aware, to
Yeah.
tone back the gratuitousness.
Yeah, yeah,
In the same chapter, there were like 3 different spots where I was like, we don't need to say
yeah.
exactly. We can imply.
Right. Like how
It's a little more
brutal do we need
tasteful.
to describe Mother Mole getting gangbanged? You know, like it's
We
um
just don't. George doesn't do it.
yeah,
Not
yeah. I
really.
mean, I wanted to make it like a little bit like Bran listening to Cersei and Jamie, you know, and like that was about it, you know. So it's the Victorian thing, like, you know, it's very uncomfortable to write because it's just like, oh God, like George put this random scene in that went on and on about like, and clearly he was uncomfortable with it, where he like didn't read it again, right? Like I think he's read the
Mhm.
Victorian sample chapter a few times, and he like didn't read the second half again. Um, but then I was like, okay, well, you can balance that by having more on the deck. So yeah, I think that's a really good idea. That yeah, in fact, I'll put out a little submission about the Ironborn song. Um,
Cool. I've abused my power. I'm happy.
no,
Put that request into the world.
it's a really good idea because like once he goes on deck, like he makes a rousing speech, but he it could add more. You know, it could definitely
It could be when they're rowing. I mean,
yeah,
I don't know.
it could be anything. Yeah. Oh man. And plus like I mean we need it, more Lord of the Rings-ish, right? Like more like more
Sure.
more,
Yeah.
more pages of songs.
And honestly, it goes a little bit towards explaining why Theon like thinks so well of this culture he's like reminiscing about at the start of his story. Like that there is this kind of song and history component in his mind. Because
Yeah.
what we know about Ironborn it doesn't really explain why Theon is like, man, I wish I were one of those guys.
It's true, considering that he like the only thing he can I mean one would think that the only thing he would remember would be like good times with Dagmar Cleftjaw, like him and Dagmar Cleftjaw like hanging out.
Right.
And
But
like
that's not really in the start of his story. He's not thinking, man, Dagmar, it's my real
no.
my real.
That's another thing George didn't think about too much, right? Like, that Dagmar Cleftjaw thinks of Theon as a son, yet Theon never thinks about Dagmar.
Yeah, what did Theon think about George?
Nothing. I mean, he apparently thinks about it so little he can't even recognize his own sister, which
Yeah.
which I think is ridiculous. Because what's funny is I moved away from where I lived when I was like in the first part of my life when I was 12, and I went back to visit when I was in my early 20s,
Mhm.
and so it had been like 11 years since I'd been to my old neighborhood. And so I go to my old neighborhood and I'm walking down the street and I see, I see my house, and then I walk down the street to where my friends' houses are. And lo and behold, my friends are there. Like it's been like 11 years. And they're visiting their parents or whatever, and one of them is like mowing the lawn, and he looks up, and there wasn't even like that guy looks familiar. There wasn't like it was immediate. He was just his head went up, and he's like, Preston. And it's like there was not like, who is that guy? It was immediate recognition. Immediate. And the fact that
I thought you were gonna say on your side towards him, because like, how tall are you, Preston? I'm sure he recognized you right away.
I'm 6'6", but no, I mean obviously, he's in front of his house, so of course I'm gonna know that it's him too. He looks.
Yeah.
Even though he was like, whatever, 11.
But your point stands. The human brain and faces, it's a thing. We remember that stuff.
We remember that stuff. It was like immediate. Another time I remember, I was once like at an airport with a friend, and like I think it was the Chicago O'Hare, and like the subway, like the between terminal subway doors open, and he sees a dude in there, and he's like, Kruger, and he goes over and he shakes his hand, and then the door closes, and he's like, yeah, went to grade school with that guy. And it's like, what? Like, I was like, when's the last time you saw him? And I was like, he's like 15 years. And it was just like, like, what?
Yeah, and Theon is what, 10 years out?
Yeah. He would completely recognize his sister.
I'll move away from my mic. Apparently I'm too loud.
Oh, really? People complain that I'm like too soft. I never can get all of my, because when I listen back on these, I seem okay.
It's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Oh, well. Okay, let's see. Where was I? What's the, back to this, what's the best restaurant or meal I've ever had in my life? So honestly, the best meal I've ever had in my life was, I went camping once in the Canadian Rockies. So that camp I went to when I was young, like they did like longer trips. If you've ever heard of like Outward Bound or Knowles, it wasn't that, but it was like that. Like I would do camping trips in the summertime when I was young that were like many weeks long. And so I did this camping trip for like 30 days in Canada, around Banff and Jasper. And the thing is, when you're traveling up there, you can't have real meat, and you can't have like cooking meat because the bears will come out and kill you. So, besides some like summer sausage, like we were eating like textured vegetable protein and stuff like that. So I'd like gone without really eating much meat for like a full month. And we get back and we're like a day from like civilization. And we run into some other campers. And these guys are like breaking the rules. And they're like, yeah, we're only a mile in. Or we're only a day in. And they pull out some steaks and they cook some steaks. And I remember like they shared one of the steaks with me. And I was just like, oh my God. Like, I just still remember it being the most delicious thing I've ever had in my life. But it was just like, because I'd gone so long without meat, that having the meat all of a sudden, I was like, oh my God, this is the most delicious thing in the world. I also seem to remember I lived in Japan for a summer, and I was brought to TGI Fridays. And I remember it's in Japan, most things that you get are like perfect. You go to the convenience store, you get a banana. It's like the perfect banana. But I remember it was way back in the year 2000, and there was a chicken sandwich on the menu that was like the cheapest thing, and it was $17, which, at the time was a lot of money. It's still a lot of money, but at the time that was like, oh my God, like imagine seeing like a $30 chicken sandwich, And I got it, and I was like, this better be the best chicken sandwich I've ever had. And it was the best chicken sandwich I've ever had, but because it was Japan. But those are the sorts of things like I remember. Okay, let's see, where are we? Was the Bravo rescue ending meant to parallel Theon's rescue of fake Arya? Do you think Bran was influencing Theon like Sam was influencing what's his name? It was yes, of course. The parallel at the end of the story was to parallel Theon's rescue. Them both leaping and jumping, which are both parallels to Bran falling from his tower and all of these sorts of things. I think I'd even read a comment on one of my streams that was like, you should end the Samuel chapter with him like rescuing the girl and then like them plummeting to their death. And I was like, yeah, that's a pretty good idea. And so I think that was that was in it. Though, Will, you and I discussed, we had a discussion of whether or not like the fountain could actually like break their fall, and if like
yeah. So I was thinking at first, like just plummeting into the fountain gives us an excuse to transition back to Sam thinking about the bath, which seemed convenient if he wanted to end on that. And then maybe people are thinking, well, the fountain is there. Could they survive by jumping in it? I don't think so. That wasn't where my head was at. But I mean, the fountain has now been placed there, so do with it as you will.
And it was a coincidence, because when I think when we Like the fountain was just there because we needed to like throw out that Pantera is there. She's got 6 nipples. It seems logical that you'd have a fountain with water shooting out of her nipples or something. And then it just happened to be on like the western side. And so
I moved it under where he was going to end up.
Oh, really? Okay.
I set that up in advance.
And so
because I wanted not for like the points of him surviving or anything, just because I wanted him to glance down and see that statue again for a moment.
Yeah.
Like a paragraph needed a little moment where Dahan looks. That's what it comes down to. Like I needed a transition from one paragraph to another where you notice this thing that you saw before. I also put him in thinking about the grappling hook, the grapnel or whatever.
Yeah,
that he had set up.
I did like that because it's something to do with I joke about like How I Met Your Mother, which is about continuity porn. Like, so much about How I Met Your Mother is like, oh wait, I remember the previous episode where they had the pineapple, that kind of stuff. But there is something in the head where like, oh right, that grappling hook. Oh yeah, right,
because it was hooks to follow the story through. Like, oh yeah, I remember this is the point he's trying to get here. Like this has all been established. This is a reminder. Of course, I know it doesn't matter because I've read the ending. But as you're reading for the first time, it makes sense in this story to have all these little bits of connection.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing is there's also like real life and there's like. Because George R. Martin also plays into these like random little tropes. Like there's no way that like in TV shows people fall into pools and survive. In reality, like pool can't really like break that much of a fall.
No, might as well on cement.
You should not jump into a pool like past the second level of like you're not going to do very well. But shows always have this kind of stuff where people fall and land in pools and are fine. So
Zelda has it.
Yeah, like George plays into that kind of stuff. So I mean, Bran shouldn't have lived, but I guess ravens got under him or crows got under him and like broke his fall or something.
Mm-hmm.
Should Theon and fake Arya have lived? So in that sense,
well, they flew.
Yeah, they flew, right?
That's the connection to Bran, by the way, Theon saying we flew. So was Bran involved? Is it just
right, the snow being high like broke their fall. So I mean, it's possible. There was also some discussion of whether or not like is it possible that like Malwyn Colio and like jumped on Karane Samante's ship and like went off and like lived happily ever after.
Sure.
The trip's paid for. 2 of us, like fine, let's go to
Did they know about this ship though? Did Dahan clue any of them in?
I don't think so. He wouldn't,
The captain would just find them trying to get his money or something like that.
Yeah, maybe.
Like, well,
they both got paid, so they should have the money.
Yeah,
it's true. But would they be able to get out? The thing is like, I guess they do have 2 horses, but they'd have to like ride the one horse back to the other horse. Though mules aren't, they aren't slow animals.
No.
So could they have gotten away? The question is like, would Colio have been finished singing by the time like Dahan got there? So I don't know.
Certainly the chaos would be a distraction that might allow them to get away. If they were being held by some Unsullied, but the Unsullied then scrambled upstairs, they could just piece out at that point. So I'd say they're fine. Let's go with that.
Happily ever after. Yeah. These 2 guys that seem to hate each other.
It's an odd couple dynamic,
Buddy.
It's got a serious potential.
The further adventures of Malwyn the alchemist and Colio the singer. Did you read the indictment? This secret look at this made me laugh out loud. I also read the Eileen Cannon reversals. Great. I'm not sure what the Eileen Cannon reversals is. I did read the indictment. It's interesting having like knowing a bit about classified material. Like for a previous job I had at the Department of Homeland Security, I actually did a review of security clearances and so I and classified information. Every year, you have government employees that have access have to take refresher training and stuff like this. So it's kind of burned into my head, the information, and so it's amazing to me that Trump was even able to get the stuff out, and that they would have been so sloppy to even ship it down to Florida. I don't even know how that happened. Because like when you're dealing with, so there's something called TSSCI, which, you know, is top secret, special compartmentalized information. And usually that stuff you could only read when you're in something called a skiff, which is like this metal box that makes it so like no one can like eavesdrop on your conversation. And the reason that they have these boxes is that when you're talking in front of a window, the vibrations of your voice actually can cause your window to vibrate. And so you can use technology to bounce signals off the window to determine what people are saying inside. So like a room with a window is not very secure because of the vibrations that your sound waves do against your window. So you have this TSSCI stuff that you read in a skiff. It's amazing to me that somehow like a whole bunch of this stuff got into crates, and then they're just like, okay, ship it out. Like, I don't even know how, but it's incredibly sloppy. And the fact that it was done by like for ego, so he could like point it out to people and be like, here you go, like look how cool I am, I've got this top secret information. He had it out during a wedding, which I really want to know, like the people who were at the wedding where there's boxes of top secret information like hanging out, like what do you like the bride and groom, like wouldn't they read this and be like, oh my gosh, like that was our wedding? Like, or the FBI probably already talked to them. Just crazy stuff like that. But yeah, it's hilariously incompetent, hilariously sloppy. Like it's hard to believe that it could be so ridiculous, that it's just outrageous. That all of that stuff would be paper, and that they would let him ship it out. And oh man, yeah. So I don't know. It's hard to see anyone getting out of this. I don't know how anyone's gonna get out, like how Trump would get out of it.
Presidential pardon.
I guess he'd have to wait to the next president, right? Which maybe. I mean,
Biden's not going to give him his one time. Come on.
Yeah. I mean, you know, does he get elected and then pardon himself? Is that the hope?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
DeSantis sure. Get elected and then, you know. What's your favorite character and why is it Jaime Lannister? Also, do you have any fantasy series to recommend to listen to while painting Warhammer? I wish I had the time to paint Warhammer figurines. Man, what a nice relaxing life that would be. Oh man. I don't know if my favorite character is Jaime Lannister. I mean, Jaime Lannister is I think he's the funniest character. Just because he's so deadpan and dry, and I do love his Feast for Crows chapters for that reason. I think like if I'm thinking of point of view chapters, I think my favorites, I mean, I think Victorian is also very funny, but I do think that my favorite point of view chapters are Theon After All This Time. I do like the Quentin chapters, and I'm trying to think like just chapters I look forward to the most. You know, I think I'm looking forward to the Samuel chapters like the most, like coming in the future, or the Sansa chapters in the future. But I think reading through, I think I most enjoy like the average Theon chapter, even though like then again, Aeron Damphair probably has the best too. You know, so I think I do think that the Ironborn is the best written, the most interesting, the craziest kind of stuff. Just because it's like dark and gets to like where how real humans think in twisted, weird ways. Um, like even Victorian, as twisted as he is, it's not like there isn't like a small dark piece of all of us that like understands like Victorian, or like the twisted pieces, like twisted insecure ideas of like Aeron. There's like a piece of us like in the back of our minds that like kind of weirdly know somebody like Aeron, or like, you know, or Theon. Like there's, you know, he's so insecure and arrogant at the same time that we that that we kind of think about that.
I wasn't asked. I'm gonna real quick say I love
Sure.
reading Catlin's chapters.
You
Uh,
you like the Catlin chapters the most?
I love the Catlin chapters, and I want to say sort of most improved for George writing women, because I've read a lot of his older stuff, and the women there not nearly as fleshed out as Catlin as a character. Like Catlin is so interesting to me. Like the interaction between
Yeah.
her and Maya Stone on the mountain, her like
Oh,
kind of really looking down on the stupid naive girl. Like Catlin is quite high on herself. She's not perfect. She's not this like perfect woman who's so hot and she has red hair like a lot of previous George characters. Like Catlin is kind of a jerk. She's very elitist. She's full of herself and how beautiful she is, which, you know, she's right about. But she's also really smart. She's really brave. Like Catlin is so cool.
yeah, you know, the difference between George and say and you know, when people talk about when the sexists get angry at like Mary Sue characters in Marvel, say, you know, and they get really angry at Brie Larson.
Is Ray Star Wars with Mary Sue?
Right, you know.
Yeah.
The thing about, I will grant that like when you take somebody like Carol Danvers, that she doesn't feel quite flawed enough, you know, like there's
For Cat.
yeah, you know, like clearly they want to have like a character that they can sell action figures to little girls, and so they want to make this like powerful character that little girls will be like, yes, I want to buy that action figure. And so I suppose what's revolutionary about George's female characters is that they're each so flawed, just like the male characters are. Like none of the male characters are perfect. They're all very flawed characters, and the female characters are just as flawed as the male characters. You know,
Which is again,
I think people focus on the flaws of the female characters more than they focus on the flaws of the male characters.
Well, they do, and that's just sexism. But I'm pointing out that early George has, you know, his version of Cat would not be nearly as interesting, and even like Song for Leah, Leah is not as interesting as Cat. Cat is fantastic.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like even stories like that have female protagonists, like Night Flyers. That character is like a little too perfect. Like Melantha Jurl is like arrogant. That's, you know, that's about it.
Yeah.
What else? Like the Bitter Blooms, he has a female character, and there's nothing really flawed about her. She's just like a really great protagonist. In fact, the woman she meets is much more interesting. The wizard woman.
Yeah, and she's cool. I'm not gonna say George never wrote a cool female character before, but I think he, you know, got older, unsurprisingly, matured, and got better in that specific area.
There, you know, I think maybe it was Beauty and the Beast. You know, that he had to write a female character for 3 years on Beauty and the Beast, and he got better at it.
Mm-hmm. Could be, yeah.
You know, I'm trying to. He did learn a lot about like pacing and making things a little more exciting from his time in Hollywood. But yeah, I'm like, I do love all the female characters. Like I love Osha, and I love Brienne, and I love Ariane, and I love Catlin, and Sansa, and I love Arya, and they're all flawed in their own little ways. You know, yeah. Do you think there's a significant shift from like Catelyn's character in Game of Thrones, Clash of Kings, and A Storm of Swords?
Not really. Why? I know that's leading somewhere.
No, well, I actually think that like despite like people like loving the Red Wedding and stuff like that, for some reason
Hmm.
I kind of feel like Catelyn becomes like she's more of her own character in the first two books, and then she kind of becomes like the watcher of Robb's story in the third book. But I don't know.
And the teaser of information about the plot, thinking about Littlefinger, thinking about the past, and all this stuff.
Yeah,
A little, but uh, eh, yeah. I mean, I see what you mean, but she feels pretty consistent to me, and she's still like taking initiative. She's choosing to do things that
yeah.
turn out to be smart, like releasing Jamie. I'll say it turned out to be smart. Cat's smart.
Cat is smart. Cat is smart, especially post book one. she's
Yeah.
she's
Uh, Even there, I don't. I'm not a cat hater. I'm not going to blame her
no,
for the
no.
war. That's yeah.
But I think kidnapping Tyrion was their biggest mistake, obviously.
It's a split second decision, you
Yeah.
know. And honestly, like think about the kind of power that you have when you're just in a random tavern and you can say like, you should all like risk your lives for me right now. Like we're
Yeah.
either going to die on the journey maybe, or you might get killed in retribution by the Lannisters. You have to decide right this second to put
Right.
your life on the line for me, and they do it. Like that's
Yeah.
crazy.
I mean, I would say it's a much smarter decision than, say, sneaking up to see your dad and murdering him. I think
Yeah.
that one's
And
probably
it's so brave, and it shows like what a badass she is, that she can just do that. She
yeah,
can
it's
just
true.
walk into a room and men do this for her.
And just like on the
Damn.
spot being like, you guys swore your allegiance to me. Prove it, knight. Okay, we're in. We're in. Let's
Yeah,
do it.
because you could have that oath, and they wouldn't necessarily do it. But Kat's the kind of person who she shows up, you do it.
Yeah,
So
it's true.
that's a badass moment for me.
You should read
Even
review
if we can
Berserk.
say there's bad things
Yeah,
about it.
you should
Oh,
read
I've
review.
read Berserk.
You have?
Yeah, I can talk about Berserk if you want, but is
That's
Preston really gonna like it? Carmine is gonna kill me if I say Preston wouldn't like it, but
oh
would
really?
he?
Um, he says so. Carmine is fairly honest about it in that he's like, in that he says that there's a lot of Berserk that is irrelevant that you can like pass over.
Yeah, I'm gonna say.
And say like, you just need to focus on this, this, and this, and this, and then you're like,
Okay, sure. If
yeah,
if you're talking about Carmine's mediated tour through the story, the parts that he's into and he wants to share with you, then yeah, I
yeah,
think you would be into that. But also, so much of it is about appreciating the art style and like the sheer amount of work that goes into all of these drawings, which is just crazy. I can't
yeah.
begin to. I don't know enough about art to even scratch the surface of how good it is. But just as a story, is it exactly Preston's jam? I don't
Hmm.
know.
The because I do think about like stories I really like series I really like, and most of them don't have that much irrelevant information. Like if someone were like, "Oh, I need to, should I watch Angel? Is there anything I can skip over?" I'd be like, "No, you need to watch every single episode of Angel to really understand the story." Um, Now that's a little biased. You probably don't, but I'd be like, "No, it's all great. You need to watch."
It all feels essential to you as a fan,
Yeah.
whereas even Carmine, as a big Berserk fan, is saying, "Well, no." I'm checking Discord to see if I'm banned yet from Carmine's Discord, daring to.
With Ice and Fire, some people would say like, "Oh, you can skip the Brienne chapters or something." I'd be like, "No, no, that's really essential stuff." Like, there's nothing in Ice and Fire that I would say is like not like that you can skip other than like Fire and Blood, or something like that. But
John and Danny chapters, and
there's a
in
couple,
Dance. Not
there's a
really,
couple,
not
couple
really.
John and Danny chapters maybe that you could skip. Couple Arya chapters in a Clash of Kings maybe, or a Storm of Swords, but that's about it. That's about it. I mean, there's not much else that I'd be like, oh yeah, just skip it.
Yeah, no.
Hmm. You put a lot of thought into each chapter. Impressed. It's more than you'd think. Like it's like even in the going over videos, like I don't even hit all the stuff. that we talk about, that we go over, because it's like it's all of, you got to think like it's all of these ideas that the people that submitted like had, and then it's like I take all of the best ones, and then like we you know, weave a narrative, we weave the story together, and then like the editors like think over this stuff over and over and over and over again, and then it's thought about in a sense of like what line sounds like George, and what words does George say, and how is this more interesting. My God, I was looking at Victorian, and I didn't realize like Victorian, the writing style for Victorian is, George is like he shifted it. Like there's a slow shifting to like the current style. Like Victorian 1 is a very clear different writing style from like the like the Reaver or the Iron Captain, like way back. And it's like these little things, like I need to bring it up to show people what, because I didn't even think about it until I was going over the chapter, and I was like, this doesn't sound like Victorian. What am I missing? What am I missing? And then it hit me, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's crazy that George like made this very conscious writing style change. And I don't know if he just like does it subconsciously, or
How conscious it was.
Yeah. Oh my God. Like, and I realized Victorian 1, and what impresses me about Victorian 1 is that like it's written so late. And it's so good. So like when reading Victorian 1, a Dance with Dragons, I realized that every paragraph, or nearly every paragraph, is begun with a short punch to the gut like sentence, and then he goes into more description, but the first sentence is always like Victorian, you know, like you just like, the captain of the galley had realized his peril by then. The prize was named Giscari Dawn. Victorian had his tongue torn out for lying. There's no God but R'hllor and the other. You know, he hoped in vain. Like everything is like short. You know, there's a few that are,
and
little, you know,
that's a character specific thing for George.
Yeah. The next day, a sudden squall descended upon them. You know, it's like, and you realize like, oh my gosh, like nearly every paragraph, it just begins with this like, boom. And also like the plot jumps significantly like between paragraphs. Like he'll just like, you know, it's like a day later, or like a complete, like you're into the, you know how like, I've talked about how like chapters begin in the middle of the action, and then you kind of retroactively like fill in through flashback how you get that to there. Like he's kind of doing that with every paragraph, or nearly every paragraph in with Victorian. And so I was like, wow, like this was really, sometimes I'm in awe of George, and then sometimes I'm like, this, you know, he was phoning it in. But like Victorian, he was really working hard on this one.
Yeah, it's economic in terms of space. It's economic, you know, for character stuff.
Oh yeah. And so
it's
like,
well done.
Yeah, you kind of like how incredible, like I guess, and I think George, I guess, decided that he liked it too, because Victorian was gonna die. He was gonna kill Victorian off. And so he himself was like, no, I'm fucking writing gold here. Like, I can't kill Victorian off.
I'm on a roll.
I'm on a roll. Are the Stannis-aligned Ironborn still going to try to sneakily capture the Dreadfort? If so, you could probably fit a song in there as a distraction. Yeah, no, you know, I think one of the things, I think that to toot my own horn, I think like, even though analysis of the North has been very heavy. I mean, begun by Bran Voss and Can't Use, and there's been a lot of really heavy analysis of the North done. I think the thing that I've added to the discussion has been the Ironborn, like, and what Dagmar Cleftjaw is doing, and how that can relate to like the Ironborn that were captured at Deepwood Mott and Wex, and how it all connects. And I do think that the Ironborn are going to somehow sneakily take the Dreadfort, or and that'll be brought into things. And so I think that's going to be happening when we do the Theon chapter. I know people are really anxious for me to get to the North because everybody loves the North. But I think Osha is essentially the Battle of Ice. And then we're going to be wondering what's happened to Theon. And then the next chapter will be picking up with Theon, which I think Theon would be used to take the Dreadfort. And then kind of have backstory on Dagmar Cleftjaw. I think he and Dagmar Cleftjaw would be together. And I think earlier Will and I were talking about how like there really should be more about their father-son relationship. I think that would be the perfect opportunity. It would be like Dagmar and Theon taking the Dreadfort. Father and son. Or at least talking about it or something. Yeah. Wagyu is overrated. Changed my mind. It is overrated. Wagyu is just like Japanese beef that's like fatty. It's totally overrated. I mean, it's like any other like fatty beef. Like it's any other like filet mignon or whatever. It's plus they shove it in soups and stuff, so it doesn't. You're not even like tasting it so much. Anyway, do you think Jaime can be redeemed? I do. I mean, the whole point is for his redemption, right? The whole point. And if he's got to do something good, he's got to do something where by the end you're like, no, Jaime Lannister is a good person after all, and fundamentally different and not the twin of Cersei. I think is the idea. And I think an easy way to do things is to retroactively like make a lot of decisions Cersei's, but I think that's kind of cheating. And be like, oh, he was coerced into doing this and this and this. No. I think that it's better for him to like come around to realizing for himself like what his moral code is and what's right and wrong, and have him do something that he believes is right. And so I think that's the way to go. And not what other people think is right, like not what what a Kingsguard code or anything like that thinks is right. I've read people where they say, oh, I think Jaime's like story is like he's going to be like submit to Jon and be Jon's Kingsguard, and that's going to be his like, and he'll keep his promise to Rhaegar through that or something. And I was like, nah, that's missing the point. It's missing the point. I think it's all about Jaime deciding for himself what's right, which is a bit weird considering he already did what's right like way back in the day when he killed Aerys, which was the right thing. But I guess he needs to discover for himself again. But yeah, I think Jaime is definitely redeemable. Otherwise, what's the point? What's the point? Why are we following this guy around? You have predicted that Victorian might gain a dragon at some point with pork. If so, do you think there would be a Victorian faction of nobles who start following him to rival Fagon, Aeron, Daenerys, etc.? Because we've been working on the Victorian chapter, I've been thinking a bit about what he would do next. After he takes a dragon, what would the next chapter look like, and where would he be? And I was kind of like thinking about him like being in the Summer Island, the Summer Islands, like taking that route south and like having conquered the Summer Islands, and then thinking about his next step. Like when he eventually makes it to Westeros, like what will his ragtag group look like? You know,
Listen, I'll pitch you.
yeah. Okay.
He's got a dragon. What does he do with it? He stops the others. He saves the world. Dany's not going to do it. She's stuck in Marine. Let Victorian do it.
That's kind
Easy.
of funny.
It would be hilarious if Victorian saved the world from the others. Like you pointed out, he freed the slaves like Dany was trying to do. Dany's not really doing that anymore. Victorian does it kind of by accident, right? He's not thinking about it. It's convenient at the moment. So Victorian kind of, fumbling into saving the world from the others would be really funny.
The entire Dance of the Dragons is actually Victorian against Aegon.
Yeah.
And he does the same plot. He goes up, he has a romance with Jon.
Yeah, let's do it.
He stops the others with his dragon.
It would be so funny.
Definitely not what people expect. Yeah, that's the thing is I don't think George, I mean, because George planned on killing Victorian, he didn't really think of like where Victorian would go and what he would do with it. He even shifted the House of the Undying vision to have Victorian fit it instead of Euron. So it's very interesting. Man, could Victorian stop the others? Maybe. I mean, he'd probably be the first one to arrive. I mean, say another dragon is taken by Quentin or somebody, and it heads back and gets into Team Aegon's hand or something. Would Victorian still win? Victorian, I think, would have faster ships, but I don't know, big fleet. Where would he go? Would he just be obsessed with like going back and trying to kill Euron? And taking the Iron Islands? Is like that too much of an obsession for him? Or would he like totally believe he's the chosen one of the Red God, and so when all these like Volantines, like from soldiers who are like are totally into the religion, when they like see him with the dragon, would they like immediately all be like, you're the one to save the world? But even do the Volantines even know about the others? Have to work it out. But I don't know. I don't know what Victorian would do when he got back to Westeros. You'd think that like he would go and try to find Euron and kill him, or face him at some point. But to what end? And if he did, like what do you do at that point? Who would join Victorian? Summer Island. That's the thing, is I was thinking about Jalbar Zoe and like his political situation with the Summer Islanders, and like could Jalbar Zoe become a major character? And things like that.
Yeah, Victorian could help him out. Victorian could help out the North. He can make a lot of allies.
That's true.
He's got the power.
Every little tossed off random person like that we've forgotten about, and then they all team together as the Victorian followers. The ones that just don't fit. The wildlings in the Vale, the wildlings in the Kingswood, all these different groups. Maybe. Oh man.
If you can't justify it in character, just say Bran, time-traveling Bran, gave up on everyone else saving the world, and he was like, I've got one piece left to play. It's Victorian. He's doing it. This is the time.
That's kind of true. I've played this out 1,000 ways, and Daenerys always gets stuck.
God damn it.
Like you see.
Yeah.
I can't do anything. Victorian's my only chance. He's the only one with initiative. Why does Arya kill Darian, the Night's Watchman? She has no real reason to, and she sees Ned do it. So why does she kill that guy? I think so the death of Darian is definitely supposed to be a big questionable moment for Arya's like character. In fact, I almost hate that she doesn't have that in the show. Like everybody she kills in the show, it's justified because they're horrible people, right? Like, oh, um, Marin Trant, like, it's not just that he killed like um, her water dancing teacher. He's also a pedophile, therefore it's okay. Oh, the phrase "we killed all them," it was okay. Like she's always killing people that deserve to die, which Darian it's kind of a brilliant little thing because like yeah, Darian's an arrogant guy, and he's a deserter, but like he also said he was innocent, and he probably was innocent when you think of like the story. So he was sent to the wall, accused of something he didn't do, and then, has a really great life. Like he's a great singer, and it looks like he's doing really well in Bravos. And then she like takes that from him. She takes his life for a second time. And it is you're supposed to question it. You're supposed to be like, oh my gosh, like that was her own twisted, weird moral sense that made her make that decision. And there's a lot about like Arya's own moral code. Like when she's told to kill the insurance salesman, she keeps having to like justify it in her mind. She couldn't just kill somebody because the faceless man told her to. She had to keep like coming back and being like, oh, he's wicked. I can tell he's wicked by the way he looks, And then she goes back and like they tell, the kindly man tells her that like, actually like he's a bad insurance salesman. He's been like not paying his debts. And he's like, oh, okay. Like she needs justification. Her own personal justification. So I mean, she's in many ways a mirror to Jaime in the sense that like Jaime is trying to find like how universal morals, where you just adhere to some code, doesn't make any sense. You have to decide for yourself. But Arya is kind of the reverse of that, where she's finding justification on her own, but her justifications are crappy. When you have this sort of kind of moral relativism, anything is possible. And so Arya is kind of this like bad tale of like what it is when there's nothing to guide you but your own screwed up moral sense, when you don't care about other people. So it's you're supposed to say that like, it was an evil move of Arya. It was definitely an evil move of Arya to kill Darian, because I mean at the beginning of the story we're sort of like left, when Garrett is killed, we know that execution was not really just, and so executing Night's Watch deserters is not really a great moral justification for things. So, but specifically like that answers like why story wise it was done, but I think on a personal level, I think she's trying to connect to her dad or something. She hears about it or something. She's, and something like that. She doesn't know what morality is. So she's like testing out different things. Like, this is what my dad would have done, because she can't come up with her own. She's not talented enough. She's not moral enough. She's not intelligent enough to craft her own like moral.
Preston, she's not old enough.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, she's not old
She's a
enough.
kid.
She's a kid. You're right. So why does she do it? Because she's a dumb kid. I guess that would have been a faster one if I just said she's a dumb kid. When Dany punks Astapor for the Unsullied army, Grasden is said to be sitting in a sedan. Subtle hint of the story's true sci-fi nature. Yes. Yes, it's a Toyota Camry. The whole time. Yes, that's it. um, the I mean, I think if we're going with things that might show the true sci-fi nature, we've got Storm's End and the Wall and stuff like that. Stuff they just can't produce. With a sedan. I mean, I think they have telescopes and things like that that are out of time too. Medical technology. Hmm. Um, have you seen The Lone Gunman? Thoughts on it? The Lone Gunman, as in like the X-Files spin-off show, or is there some other Lone Gunman? Because I never did see The Lone Gunman, the X-Files spin-off show. Let's see if there's something recent. Oh, that was Lone Gunmen. That was plural. So maybe there's a Lone Gunman. I guess we must be talking about the Lone Gunman. Unless there's a podcast, I'm not sure, but I haven't seen it. I saw X-Files. I thought it was okay. I liked X-Files, though it did create this entire generation of people that think that the government is somehow competent and knows things, and like secrets can be kept, which is just not the case. There's the government is, for the most part, pretty incompetent, pretty underfunded, and filled with a lot of people that spill all of the secrets. And you can just look at like how on earth did like Trump's like end up with like hundreds of boxes of like classified information? How did this happen? Yeah, because the government's filled with a bunch of like incompetent idiots. So me included. So it's just it's more like Benny Hill than anything else. It's
not the West Wing. Hyper
Oh
competent people quoting Shakespeare and doing the right thing.
Oh my god! First of all, the lighting of everything is always so good, and I'm like, what? You guys don't have fluorescent lights, and like no one has a freaking badge. Like there's these things called. One thing that gets me. So, in government, everyone has got a lanyard where you have a badge that like goes in one of these, right? And you carry these things around your neck. And if you're actually in government, it's like people will have like Pittsburgh Steelers kind of thing or whatever, various weird lanyards. Everyone has a lanyard because everyone has a badge, and they never have those in the shows, And when they do stuff, they're always like, oh, this government, it's 24, and they're like, they got to get on a flight or something. And it's like, you have to fill out so many forms, and you'd be like, okay, my form is ready. My voucher is ready. Oh, but, Daryl has to improve it. But Daryl's on AWS. That's alternate work schedule, where you have every other Friday off. Oh, he's on AWS. What? Who's underneath it? Carl. Carl's on vacation. Fuck, who's going to approve my voucher? We've got to wait until Monday. No, I can't wait till Monday. That kind of shit would happen all day long, and it's never in a show. I would love to just have some show where they need to do something, and the HR person isn't fucking there. Something like that. I know it'd be boring, but there's just such basic stuff like that. How are they getting 30 armored Suburbans to go out to pick up the crew for Armageddon? How are you getting that done? It's why are you bringing a chopper? What?
You gotta chase him down. He's on his motorcycle,
I know. Chase him down on the motorcycle. It's amazing. It's amazing. These little things like that. But everything, or it seems like every other time you do a video conference, somebody's not on it right, or they don't have the right audio or video or something drops. Like that never happens on the shows either. You know, no one ever goes in and is like, okay, my pad like isn't connected. Oh, okay. Well, let me check here. Like that happens like every other time there's like a presentation. Like you never
So by
have that.
screwing up my audio, I made this podcast more realistic to the government experience, you think?
Exactly. Or just the
Okay,
real
good.
experience. Like how many times have you done a Zoom call with like a friend where like there's just been an error? How many times have I done this like this stream where Carmine tries to call in and he can't, you know? It never fucking happens. Did you watch Sliders? It was awesome. I did watch a few episodes of Sliders. It had Sala on it, right? Gimli, John Bernice, right? What was it? What's his name? Uh, John Rhys Davies. John Rhys Davies, who, by the way, is like incredibly tall. Yet he's playing a dwarf. I think he's 6'1". He's not. I mean, he's tall. He's not super tall, but yeah, everybody loves them some. But yeah, it was. I watched Sliders some. It was. I thought it was an interesting concept, but you know, it was Sci-Fi Channel, right? So how much fun are you gonna get for that? I think by the end they couldn't even get Jerry O'Connell. How do you feel about MMA prize fighting? For or against? Ambivalent. I'm for the most part against it. I mean, keep in mind I'm against like American football now. Because when you see like people brain dead later on and having like damage to their brains, like I can't justify that with you know, oh, it's their personal choice to go into something that gives them brain damage. You know, because when you actually like look at these guys' backgrounds, you know, most of them are, you know, poor.
Or their parents raised them up to do it from a young age,
Yeah.
and like, okay, again, they're a kid. They're not choosing to do something that might, you know, hurt their brain.
Yeah,
Really.
and so it's just I don't really get it. Like I know the people, I've met a lot of the people that are into it, and you know, some are nice guys and all, but they all do seem to have an obsession with masculinity that I think is kind of weird. So there's kind of this like weird, like creepy aspect to it as well. Like I understand that it's an art and it can probably be really beautiful and impressive and stuff like that, but a lot of things are arts. Like if you like love the beauty of something, of the art of something, like switch over to rhythmic gymnastics. Like it's like both of these arts like take an equal amount of like time and effort. Like choose something that doesn't cause people brain damage. So I am against it really, but you know, I understand that it's like super popular. I think it taps into people's taps into weird aspects of like people's ideas of masculinity. Like, you know, two men who can defeat the other. And you're like, nah. Yeah. There's a million ways that two people can go up against each other. They can go up against each other in chess, you know, and no one's hurt.
It's chess boxing.
Yeah, it's just chess boxing. So it's yeah, I don't know, just kind of weird. It reminds me because somebody brought up last stream Planet of the Apes, and in the third movie, Escape from the Planet of the Apes, they bring the ape to a boxing fight, and they're like, "Isn't this incredible?" And the ape is just shocked, right? And it's one of those things that you kind of like, we all kind of deep down know that there's something weirdly wrong about it, but we kind of turn our heads. You know, it's like we all kind of understand that veal is wrong. Like we all, like no one wants to go to a veal factory and like watch veal No one, we all kind of know that's like that there's something bad about it, and it's the same with like an MMA fight. Like you kind of know, like, well, we probably shouldn't bring like children to an MMA fight. Oh, really? Well, why? What is it about an MMA fight that like should a child not see? And there's something we kind of understand, like fundamentally, that there's something wrong. Um, well, if I had a group of nuns, would I bring them to an MMA fight? Why wouldn't I? And then you kind of like you list, like list out the reasons. Like if you were trying to impress someone from a foreign culture, it's kind of a ridiculous scene from Battle of the Apes, from Planet of the Apes. Like if you were trying to impress a diplomat from a foreign country, would you take them to an MMA boxing or a boxing match, like, and be like, "This is American culture. Please judge me based on this fight"? We kind of fundamentally know that there's something off. That it's not humanity at its best.
I think most of us know that. There's going to be some amount of people who are like, "Well, this is the macho, manly ideal."
Yeah, it's super cool. Super cool. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I guess George gets into all of this with the Fighting Pits of Marine.
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you, Arnab. Oh, thank you, Arnab, again. You hear I-95 collapsed in Philly. Also, ever have issues with personal bias getting in the way of writing? Crapping on a point of view because you don't like them. I didn't hear about Philly portion of I-95 collapsing. I-95 is, for those that aren't in America, it's the highway that goes down the east coast of the United States. So it goes from Boston to Miami, essentially, passing through, all the major cities of the East Coast: Philadelphia, Baltimore, DC, Richmond. Let's see. Oh, Jesus. But this is here's the collapse of it. Huh. That's a weird one, because it's not even that big of a bridge over this little thing. Like, man. Now for the point of view, because I don't like them, I don't know if I don't like any of the point of views. I mean, I do think they're all really interesting. And I think some of them are more daunting than others. I'm very daunted by doing the Cersei, about Cersei, just because there's so many things going on with her unique way of writing. And so I think that's very daunting. But I don't know if any of them I'm really like super biased against. Maybe, relatively speaking, like Will and I were talking about how we like back a while back about how we both kind of love Ario Hota now. And like now,
Yeah,
like
we're biased for Hota.
we're biased for
not
him.
against anyone.
So relatively speaking, like he's gonna have some he's gonna have some good things happen to him. So in fact, I'm trying to get to the point where like thinking about like who needs to die and how we're gonna get somebody to die, and what's that gonna look like. And it's like it's a horrible Sophie's Choice. So I like all of them. I like all of them. So it's really hard. Ron DeSantis, war on Disney, trans and immigrants, lit. They're all illegal laws. Where does it fall? Immigrants litigation. So Ron DeSantis has been doing a bunch of like weird show things to try to like make national news so that as he runs for president, people will know who he is. So like he got some immigrants and he packed them on a bus and he sent them across the country to a different city. And technically speaking, this is kind of human trafficking, and he kind of has these like laws that he's had on Disney, like banning what was this things that he was trying to do with Disney, like but he tries to ban like critical race theory and all sorts of I'm not sure, actually. I'm not up on what exactly he's been saying. He had a don't say gay bill that affected them because they have like pride. They have a big pride parade at Disney World and stuff like that. So I mean, I think he knows a lot of these won't stand up in court, and it doesn't matter to him because he's just trying to get attention, so that people say, oh, that's the kind of guy I want for president, and that's it. Like I don't think he's going to do any time. I don't think most of these things are going to get stuck in legal limbo forever. They're just to or be struck down, and it doesn't matter to him because he's just trying to make a name for himself. So do you think any point of view will lose their tongue, or any important side character like Littlefinger, Varys, etc. will lose their tongue as punishment? I don't think any point of view will lose their tongue because it's just far too difficult to remove dialogue from a chapter. Like people talk about this with Tyrion. Like, wouldn't it be great if he lost his tongue? No, because all of a sudden he's no longer doing quips. It's dialogue is like, it's hard to do an all dialogue chapter. It's hard to do a non-dialogue chapter. Like chapters really flow best when they have both, and you kind of have, when you run into a little writer's block, like dialogue will get you out, and when you run out of dialogue, like regular writing will get you out. So it's I don't think I'm trying to think any character that we know that would lose their tongue that would be like it'd have to be somebody like Marillion pops up again and he doesn't have a tongue or something, because they're as much as it's like a kind of interesting idea, in practice it's kind of difficult to write. Like how many times can Ilan Payne like cluck and like look weird as Jaime talks to himself? How many times can the Dusky Woman say nothing? In fact, in the Victorian chapter, it's like it's really rough even like thinking about the spacing of paragraphs when only one character is talking. Because you kind of know that like when one person talks and another person talks, you can switch paragraphs. But what happens when it's just one person talk to themselves? Like when do you shift your paragraph? It's kind of weird when there's like no dialogue. I don't know. I mean, Will, you're better at like how to shift paragraphs and stuff, but
dialogue is really helpful. I mean, dialogue also drags you down the page. Like for like the pace of reading, dialogue is really good. You're gonna get bogged down if it's like page after page of like descriptive text. So yeah, hard to do the tongueless character. I agree.
Preston, how often do you see someone taller in real life? It depends where I am. Here in Taiwan, never. I never see anyone taller than me. In America, I like if I'm out and about, I'll see somebody taller like every other day. When I was in college, there was like a couple guys that I knew that were taller, so I'd see them every day. But when I was in the Netherlands, see taller people constantly. So it all just kind of depends on where I am. When I lived in Germany, people were pretty tall, so you see people kind of constantly. But I think I think like being 6'6", even though that doesn't seem like super uber tall. Like it's tall, but it's actually like 99.94% of society or something. So it's like percentage wise, you're like, oh my gosh, like out of how many people out of really like 1,000 people, I'm going to be the tallest. But then you kind of start thinking like, living in a city, how many people do you actually see every day? Well, if you're going to work, you're passing hundreds, thousands of people, so you occasionally like spot somebody. And keep in mind, like as a tall dude, like your eyes go out to it. You're like, oh, it's the same like living in Taiwan. When you see another white person, you're like, hey, it's a white person. Like everybody does it. Like you're just like, oh my gosh, the person looks so funny. Do I give them like an acknowledging head, or do I pretend I didn't see them? Like you get this like awkward situation of like what you do when you're passing another foreigner. So I see taller people like in America. I see taller people like every other day or something, but it's not here. Is Preston Taiwanese? No, I'm not Taiwanese. I'm a white guy. I imagine there's a couple non-Asian Taiwanese citizens, but there's not many. Who will kill Roose and Ramsay? I suspect that Ramsay is going to kill Roose. And I mean, not only did the show do it, but it makes sense when you break down who is allied with whom at Winterfell. So, the largest armies at Winterfell are the Boltons, and followed by the Freys, and then you've got kind of a bunch of like minor houses that would support the head of the Lord of Winterfell, the Lord of the North, right? So, in A Dance with Dragons, it's significant that the Freys and the Manderleys are sent outside. You kind of know that the Manderleys are not to be trusted, and the Freys 100% support Roose. There's like, that's where Fat Walda is married. 100%. There's no reason they would ever support Ramsay, and they get sent outside, and I think it's a significant plot point that Roose's armies are sent outside, or the ones that are at least not Ramsay's armies are sent outside, because if you kill Roose, everyone has to follow Ramsay now, So I think it is kind of set up that Ramsay is going to kill Roose. Now, who's going to kill Ramsay? That's a good question. Will it be Stannis? Will it be someone else down the line? I think there are elements that show that Ramsay will eventually win over Stannis. Just the arrogance that Stannis has in the Theon sample chapter makes it seem like maybe Ramsay is going to have his day, but we'll see. Is Bran stuck in an unsound variation? Yeah, that's the so George R. R. Martin wrote a story called Unsound Variation. Unsound Variation is apparently a fairly obscure chess term for an unwinnable game that in this variation of the game, like you can go through every possible outcome and you will never get to a winning point. And so the plot of the story is that there are this Northwestern chess team who they go up against the University of Chicago when they're young, and it looks like this one character made this really dumb move, and they lost the chess tournament because of this dumb move. And they went their whole lives like thinking, oh man, we would have won, except this one guy like screwed up, that dumbass. But it turns out the guy then goes and builds a time machine and starts replaying like and analyzing the game, and discovers that no, that game was already unwinnable. It didn't have anything to do with that move. He was already in an unsound variation. And so he decides to like use the time machine to go back in time over and over and over again, replay the world until he gets revenge on all of his enemies. And he's trying to get revenge on his like last enemy, who was our protagonist. And he can't. And so the protagonist kind of says at the end, like, it's too bad he's in an unsound variation. He's kind of in his own hell. I think Bran thinks he's in an unsound variation, but I think that there is one possible way out. I think there is a way out, but it involves a lot of cost. It involves Bran, like a lot of his family dying. I think killing John, for example, is having his father die. All these things are like important to get him out of the sinkhole. I'd have Mel urge Stannis to kill Selyse. Plunging Lightbringer through her rather than burning her makes sense with the Azor Ahai prophecy. He'd probably do it. Yeah, that all stands to reason. Of course, Stannis might be like, I thought I was supposed to love Nisa. I don't love Selyse. Like you'd be like
the ultimate sacrifice, killing Selyse. Only the true hero would do it.
Right, because he's pretty straight up honest about not loving Robert, right? Like, my beloved brother. He's like, he wasn't my beloved brother. So, maybe, but it's certainly an interesting idea. Shin Gojira, great satire of government incompetence. Let me see this. Is this Oh. Shin Gojira is Godzilla. I'm sorry that I missed that. Gojira, Godzilla. Yes. I can't believe I missed that. Yes, Godzilla is a great satire of government incompetence. It is kind of true that they can't ever get anything together to defeat the other monster, and so Godzilla has to come in and save them constantly. I'm trying to think of some other ones that like have it. I mean, The Wire does it a lot. Barry has all the cops be incredibly incompetent. Things like that. But I'm trying to think of other ones where the government is just flat out. I mean, obviously there's Brazil, but about bureaucracy and stuff like that. But Preston is surprisingly non-skeptical about government, which is funny as fuck. I mean, I'm skeptical in different ways. Like, I'm skeptical in like what government is able to achieve. I think a lot of people like really believe in these government conspiracies, which is just no. Like there's just so few of them. That I just don't, maybe you could like convince me abstractly that there's like some sort of like election 50 years ago that the CIA was involved in. I'd be like, I don't know, maybe. But like when people start talking about like John F. Kennedy getting shot by the government or the government murdering Jeffrey Epstein, no, I don't think any of that. I just I'm just not I just don't buy it. Do you think Pylos is an agent? Has been super present at big events. Probably told Mel about the attempt of the poison against told Davos about the Night's Watch plead, etc. It is true that like Pylos could have definitely informed Melisandre about being murdered, and that would be a maester's role to serve the Lord, and so they kind of, to know that like Crescent was up to no good and stuff like that. Pylos whether you think he's like working for anyone or not, like even as an independent maester, if you found out that somebody else is going to poison somebody else, like it's kind of your job to tell the Lord to that something's up. Though then again, he does the exact opposite. He goes against his Lord and like helps Davos, right? Uh, with the escape and things like that. And so what are Pylos's loyalties? That's a good question. I think it's a good question. I think one could say that Pylos is just against people getting murdered. That's a pretty simple one, but it may be that he has some sort of like master plan in the end. Like maybe he really is is he one of the gray sheep? Trying to think of nothing he does really like pushes for that though. Like, the anti-magic or anything like that. Like I'd have to like think it through. Maybe I feel like maybe I had a theory on Pylos like years ago that I'm now like forgetting about. But I think I do remember commenting on the fact that like I think Pylos is the one that clued in Melisandre on the poison, or clued in Stannis and Melisandre on the poison. That she didn't use any like magical abilities to like figure it all out. It's just Pylos told her. But I'm trying to think like in a grander scheme, like what, like if Pylos could be part of a team. But I'd have to really think about that one. Because like what does the whole Edric Storm thing, how does that play into anybody's hand? I don't know. They're still hoping to keep MMA gave me confidence to face my bullies when I was in school. I mean, I had bullies in school. I fought, I got in a lot of fights. People keep in mind that like I was very tall when I was young, but also very skinny. I don't know. The thing is that the bullies I knew also did. I mean, it was kind of like freaking Karate Kid. The bullies I knew also did, martial arts, and so I kind of felt that like the martial arts like promoted them into trying to be violent, thinking that like they wanted to try out the stuff that they'd learned. So while I completely believe and accept that like, martial arts gave you confidence, I also accept that like martial arts like pushes people to be more violent than they are. The thing is, when all you have is a hammer, everything starts looking like a nail. If you're learning to punch and kick all the time, you want to start punching and kicking stuff. I'm not saying everybody, but like the you all of a sudden find yourself in situations like that have violence, and so I don't necessarily think it was like martial arts was any sort of like net benefit to society, because like I say, my bullies like studied, I'm fairly convinced that they wouldn't have been trying to like be physical with people had they not had like classes where they were like being taught stuff. So anyway, thank you, Knapsack 229. Why doesn't Sam have Florent ears? I mean, not everybody's gonna look exactly like their parents. I don't know if the CIA was involved. Wink, wink. I think the CIA is much more incompetent and useless than people think as well. How do you see Shireen's sacrifice playing out? I think I mean, I think the the regular purpose of like Shireen's sacrifice is mainly to establish like Stannis as a horrible, irredeemable character, that you're doing something incredibly evil, like Meleys the Monstrous, killing your own kin, right? You know, Rat Cook eating your own kin, Titus Andronicus eating your own kin. Like there's a fundamental like evilness to destruction of one's own young, and I think that's like fundamentally like the purpose of her dying, or at least George's original plan. Who knows if he's gonna um, um, continue on with that, but realistically, like, do I think like Shireen's sacrifice was supposed to be the magic that would bring back John? Maybe people would think that, or maybe like we're meant to like wonder that. I don't know if like John would actually be brought back through Shireen's sacrifice, but I think perhaps there would be like some sort of idea of John coming back and people wondering if that was the mechanism that did it. George like likes to throw several mechanisms and stuff. Like I say, like Cat coming back doesn't just have the kiss of life from Beric. It has like Arya with the direwolf like screaming wake up at her at the same time. So like which magical element did it? And so I think, maybe he would have like several magical things happening all at once, and it's like, well, what is the thing that brought John back? So I think that, perhaps that could have been it. Somebody, I think shit, did I fuck up a super chat? Let me see. Nappy. Maybe this one. I live in Chicago, and there were loads of shootings in my neighborhood, Lakeview. Walking to my regular bar involved stepping over bloodstains. Haven't changed my habits. Would you? So I lived on the south side of Chicago, and I was mugged there a couple times. My habits that led to it, I mean, you kind of know that like there's certain streets that you shouldn't walk down, and you probably shouldn't be walking home drunk. And one of the times involved that. So I think, that knowing which streets to walk down, and knowing not to like be stumbling home drunk is probably smart if you don't want to get mugged. So, so I don't know, changing habits. Yeah, I think I'd change habits. It was not a pleasing experience. So it's too bad. It's too bad. I mean, still to this day, like I can't really walk around at night, like through parks and stuff without like a like heart beating hot, like just having that like danger in my head. I remember being in Germany, and people in Germany, keep in mind, they just like go to parks at night and have picnics, like in the pitch black. And like, there's times I was like walking home in Frankfurt, which is completely, utterly safe. Nothing would ever happen to you. But I'm like walking through a park at night, and it's dark. And definitely my heart is like, and so I would never do that in America, never. So, do you know if anyone has approximated the area of Westeros in square miles or kilometers, based on the maps we have? Some people have, but keep in mind that like there's going to be a huge difference if something's close to the equator versus like close to the pole. But I think a lot of people say that like Westeros is about the size of South America. If you're going from like, oh, this is where it's hot and this is where it seems to be like tropical, or equatorial, and this is where it seems to be cold. That we're stretching that line, and based on, and it seems to line. George wasn't thinking about this, but by chance, like the length of the wall and stuff like this, it does kind of line up to Westeros being the size of Latin America, and or not Latin America, but South America, and then and so Essos would be uh, a little smaller than Eurasia, but kind of similar. But people have done a lot of measurements with maps and stuff. It's kind of ridiculous considering that George doesn't really like think of these things too deeply. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Brian. South America represent. Woo! So Americans generally have a really weird idea of South America. Like we kind of think that like South America is a lot like Mexico or something, and they don't. We kind of like don't. There's a lot of South America is very much European-esque, and so but and not everybody's sitting around like doing salsa and that kind of dancing and stuff. They listen to 80s music and heavy metal and all sorts of weird stuff that you wouldn't normally associate with Latin America. It's like a huge part of Latin America. Like, oh yeah, no, they love Metallica, and like you go to a restaurant and they're playing like 80s music, There's some ahas like at the restaurant, and they're very into pizza, and things like that. But let's see here. So I finally caught up with the ending here. I live in Chile, can confirm the filter. It's just every movie set is Mexico. Carmine had this joke the other day about he messaged me and he's like, hey, Washington DC looks like the Mexico filter. They always put that like orange filter on all the movies and everything. It's exactly what South Americans do. It's just nothing but dancing salsa and burritos. What's funny, Mexicans are often the butt of jokes in Latin America as like the crime-ridden place, and they'll put on like Mexican accents, and if they like want to come up with like a violent thug, they'll be like, oh, and then this Mexican did this and this, and you're like, whoa. It's like this their running joke that Mexico is nothing but crime, which is funny because like Brazil, like you're not going straight to Brazil for the crime. You're going all the way to Mexico. A Song of Ice and Fire, and yet I hear very few folks analyzing the lyrics, where they come from, why they are brought up, and when they are. Even the musicians don't get much of a mention. I think one of the reasons that the music isn't really thought about is that George very often compares poems to songs. And so when he says a song, a lot of times people are like, the poems. But you're right that poems have lyrics. But it's funny that there is this like separation from like A Song of Ice and Fire. Even though Rhaegar's sitting there with his lyre, we don't think about like what the song should have like sounded like. Is A Song of Ice and Fire like it's actually like A Song of Ice and Fire sounds exactly like Nickelback. It's like Nickelback music. Like no one's thinking that. Oh, So, Will, how long do you think this song for the Ironborn song should be? Should it be like just like four little lyrics, like 8 lines? Like,
Uh, you could do 4 lines. It
okay,
doesn't have to be long.
doesn't have to
We-
be a full Lord of the Rings, like a multiverse song.
yeah, give me something a little bit epic, some sense that that original Theon quote, like "Fire and blood and song." This is something that is a part of Ironborn culture. That would be cool.
Yeah, it's true. And apparently like pissing contests and dancing the finger dance. Um,
And stabbing things. That's also there.
stabbing things, fucking their ships.
Hmm.
Brazil porn is weird. I don't know. I don't know much about it. Or being too different at least. Latin American racism is something else. Well, I mean, every place has racism, and it's like um, how it's handled or dealt with is always kind of odd. Um, you know, America's at least like I don't know. We at least try to deal with our racism by having it be like the major part of our conversation. I don't know if we'll ever get to a solution, but every place is racist. I'll tell you that. Like like on a fundamental level, like so, like years ago when I lived in Japan, I had this like, I had a Japanese girlfriend when I lived there, and like I had like skin lotion and she like would not use it. And she's like, no, you don't understand. Like Japanese people have different skin than white people. And we like kind of, I'm like, I don't know if that's like, she's like, there's just like fundamental like differences. Like I can't use like Western lotion. It's like, where did you get that idea? It's so very odd. So very odd. I mean, I suppose on like a hair sense, like I can understand that, but lotion sense, I don't know. What do you think will happen in the Riverlands in the future? Will there be forever conflict and no rest for poor peasants? Lady Stoneheart, the Vale, the Freys, Lannisters. Any insight for the future? Well, I don't think we're ever gonna see like peace in our story, and I think like perhaps the final conflict of the story will probably be the Riverlands, just because I think that's where the God's Eye is and things like that. We eventually have to find out what the God's Eye is all about, and that's a big lost mystery box kind of thing that who knows if George even thought about it. But fundamentally, I do think that there's a Frey civil war. I think it's important that once somebody mentioned it like a stream or two ago that Jenna Lannister, like who would be regent if not Cersei, and it does seem that Jenna Lannister is the next Lannister that would be chosen. I understand that like why would all of these Tyrells who are controlling things like even allow it, but it's like, well, the Lannisters, you want to not have the Lannisters rebel. So you like throw them the bone of having Jenna Lannister be regent, and it'll take her a while to get to King's Landing or wherever she's supposed to rule from. But it's an important in the sense that she's clearly going to be on a certain side of the Frey conflict, which means the crown is going to be on a certain side of the Frey conflict, and the other Freys are going to be on the other side of the Frey conflict, and things like that. So I do think that there'll be war of some sort between the Freys and with who knows, Lady Stoneheart's just the wild card. She's wild card, but the Riverlands has always been kind of the center of the action, and I mean in the north too, I suppose. But I think it's just it's going to stay that way. It'd be great to visit the Reach more, but I don't know. Use the Tom Bombadil meter. Yes, 30 pages, 30-page song. Gosh, I know Brazilians love eating ass. There is the stories about the Catholic the Catholic thing where like, you know, the loophole. If you've ever seen Garfunkel and Oates, the loophole. Um, so it's um, a lot of Asian girls behind their pounds of makeup have a lot of acne scarring. That's true. I think, you know, if you put on a lot of makeup when you're young, you're gonna get acne. But there's also like, I think like if you're in like a southern polluted, sweaty environment, you might get more acne as well. It seems to be a southern kind of thing. Um, George R. R. Martin likes the scouring of the Shire. If destroying the ring equals defeating the others, what would the Song of Ice and Fire version of it be? Oh, like we haven't scoured enough of the freaking world here. Um, I mean, Winterfell was already destroyed. The Riverlands have already been destroyed. I think we're you know, it's just everything is getting scoured. I mean, the idea of the scouring of the Shire, right, is that like you can't go back. You can't recapture your youth. You can't go back to the good times. You can't become innocent again. And so it's kind of that. But I don't think George R. R. Martin was ever portrayed that in his story of this like, you know, wonderful innocent place. Very quickly, like Winterfell is spoiled. I think maybe off page, like Bran and Arya and Sansa have these like Shire moments, but you know, Winterfell's already been scoured over and over again. So, um, what would be Westeros's Brazil? Uh, I mean, it seems to be. I mean, George does mention it. He does mention. I mean, the loophole here and there. I mean, he had his Catholic upbringing, but like I say, he mentions it with Aaron. He mentions it with Danny getting loving a woman and getting loved every way a man can love a woman. I suppose it's like mentioned. I don't know if anything else. One would think that Cersei would have done that in order not to get pregnant, but um, uh, I don't know. Um, Latin American here. Filter confirmed. Would there be a Song of Ice and Fire Beyond, like the main story set in industrial era, current history, like just history? You know, I've thought about like the epilogue of a Song of Ice and Fire, perhaps happening in a more modern time. Um, I think that, you know, playing with this idea of like it would be like her name would be like, you know, I don't know, Anna Frey or something, or you know, when she would just be like be thousands of years after the events, but it's just this, you know, from the perspective of this one Frey woman who lives like many years later, like, and you see kind of the results, but you know, we would see. Um, Sotheros is just Australia. Everything there just kills you. Yeah, perhaps. It's like an Australia Africa combination, I think. So, you know, there was this idea that so back during the slave trade, the one of the weird things about the slave trade, not to give any sort of sympathy to slave traders, but they had a higher rate of death than slaves. That's a kind of one of the weird things, right? So you have like 20 slave traders, and they like pick up 200 slaves, and they go on their trip over. Like five of the slave traders would die, and then like, you know, 20 of the slaves would die, and so you've got like a 20% death in the slave traders and a 10% death in the slaves. And it mainly had to do with like disease and things like that, exposure to disease and stuff. But you know, it was a risky business, Risky business. I'm from Buenos Aires. I say kill them all. Fun. Buenos Aires. You know, the only time I ever went to Buenos Aires was in 2001 when they had the financial crisis, and I saw like 5 different presidents, and it was kind of a nuts time. What's weird is in the middle of the protests, they like stopped to have a big celebration for Rossing, the football team, and like how many years they've been doing their anniversary or something. They all like stopped their protests to then have a celebration about football, which I thought was amazing. But it was a very, very interesting time to be there. The big difference between Latin America and the United States and politics is, you know, being against the government is very patriotic. Like if you fly an Argentinian flag, that's just as much of a statement of being anti-government and than anything else, or at least at the time. While if you fly an American flag, the general impression is that you're being patriotic and that you're supporting the government. But like you fly an Argentinian flag if you're against the government too, like, and you want changes. It's very kind of interesting to have that have that difference. Because we definitely meld these ideas of like patriotism and like obedience to like the system. I was there for funsies in the early 2000s. Nice. It was for funsies, but I bought the ticket, and it was super cheap because it was after 9/11 and no one was flying, and then everything kind of like fell apart, and I couldn't get the money back, and I was like, I guess I'm gonna go, and I went, and I mean I'm very happy I did, because it was a really interesting time visiting Argentina, Uruguay, Brazil, and Paraguay at the time. But
I think Carmine wants to get in and he wants me out of here, so I'm not,
really?
We're not talking over each other too much. But
well, I mean, sounds good. I mean, thank you for calling in. I mean, you've been
okay, but real quick, just
Yeah.
to bother Carmine before he manages to join up. I was thinking about a while ago, you were singing something like Good by Better Than Ezra,
Yeah,
and he didn't know what it was.
right.
So real quick, just let's name a bunch of songs that Carmine isn't gonna know from 90s radio. I'm gonna give you a song and you give me a little snippet of the song. I'm gonna make you sing.
Okay.
You ready?
All right.
All right, we got Ace of Base, All That She Wants. You know the chorus.
Yes, of course. All that she wants is another baby.
Here's another babe. Yeah, okay. Done.
Yes.
Lightning Crashes by Live.
Oh, of course. Lightning crashes and a newborn dies. The placenta falls to the floor. That's two Chads. Two Chads from Live.
Okay.
There's two Chads in Live? That's a very important fact to know. That Chad, that Live has had two Chads.
It's a double Chad. I didn't know that.
Two Chads in it.
I can't even imagine having one, so
Right.
absolutely not.
Two Chads.
We're 2 for 2. Counting Blue Cars by Dishwalla.
Oh, that's a tough one. Wait. Let me. I'm gonna look up the lyrics here. Counting.
Okay.
Two.
You just have to
cars?
provide the melody.
Okay. Dishwalla. Let
Mm-hmm.
me see here. Oh, is that? Tell me your thoughts on God, because I'd really like to meet him.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
You got it.
Yeah, that one got me because it's like, how was I supposed to know the song if it's called Counting?
It's a pretty
Blue
random
Cars?
lyric.
Yeah.
The title's derived from. But okay, we got them all so far. You Were Meant for Me by Jewel.
Oh, fuck. It's like, I mean, I could do a Jewel impression, but I feel like that's all of her songs. You were meant for me, and I was meant for you. But that's not very good. That's not a very good.
Can't last for so long.
Yeah. Oh God. Do you know that she tried to put out a pop album, like
No, I have been
yeah.
completely unaware of Jewel since
So she
since
did
this song.
that.
I think.
Because that one's tough because I want to feel like there's a bunch of like folksy talk in there in that song. I hear the clock at 6 a.m.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, so it's like really talk. But that's very different from like Who Will Save Your Soul, right? That's a different song.
Yeah. So that one you kind of knew. You didn't have the melody ready to go.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. We're getting later, so I don't know when your prime time radio listening was, but moving on, we got "Sex and Candy" by Marcy Playground.
Marcy Playground. Oh, wait. Yeah. Hanging round downtown by myself, and I had so much time to
You know the
think
chorus.
about myself, and there she was. Like double cherry pie, yeah, there she was. Like disco superfly, I smell sex and candy. I didn't even know the lyric was I smell sex and candy.
Oh yeah, but you know it.
Oh,
and the
yeah.
music video, there's like a giant spider or something.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay.
This is easy, but Torn, Nelly and Brulia.
Oh God.
Wait, that one's tough for you?
Well, hold on.
And you got the others?
Oh yeah, of course. Oh, of course, fucking Torn. I'm sorry. I'm all out of faith. This is how I feel.
Yeah.
I'm cold and I am ashamed, lying naked on the floor. The Aussie girl. Once I was when I was living in China, I saw a band perform this, and I don't think the girl knew the lyrics, and she said, "I'm all out of face." Right, I'm all out of face. This is how I feel, which is interesting because it's like it makes
that's the Arya version.
Yeah, it makes sense. But I'm saying, well, face has this like Asian meaning of like your reputation, like lose face. And so like to say like, I'm all out of face. This is how, and I remember sitting there like being like listening, being like, is she saying face? And I was like, she is saying face like every time. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
That could be just as meaningful for the audience there.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Final one I've got is "The Way" by Fastball.
Is that the they drank up the wine and they started talking and I swear I heard that in a supermarket, like Muzak version, like last time I was in America. And I was like, huh, that's where we are.
That's bizarre. That was 98. So we basically made it through the 90s there. You knew them all. Carmine is so annoyed and confused. He doesn't know any of these songs.
He doesn't know any of them? Oh my God.
I'm sure he doesn't. So I've accomplished what I set out to do. Reminder, write a song for the Ironborn. You can put it in. It can be, listen, Osha's pregnant. She could sing a lullaby to her unborn child. I don't care. We need some Ironborn songs in somehow. So do that. If you want to donate to me. You know, I'm a starving freelance editor out here. You can pay me to edit your stuff. Also, hire me. Don't just donate. And
sure.
I'll see you later. Jump in
his
another
email's
time.
In the description of all the videos.
That's right.
All right. Thank you.
All right, thanks for
sticking with me for 2 hours here.
Yeah, no problem. See you later.
All right, later, man. All right, let's see if Carmine's gonna come in. Let's see. Lemon character doing shoulder shimmy dance moves. Do we need like an animated lemon of some sort, like dancing around, or is that a lyric from something? I, sometimes I get these like very cryptic things, and I'm like, what is that? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I'm getting pictures of women with like off the shoulder. Oh, this is what I get when I Google like lemon character doing shimmy dance. It's like, okay, all right, all right. Um, how did they have or make ice on Dragonstone? Used to treat Lyanna Velaryon or in Westeros in general. Practically, how is it made in this setting? Um, so in ancient times, the only place you get ice is essentially by going up a mountain. And so the implication is that somehow maybe the mountains on Dragonstone are high enough that there would be ice on top of it, and that you could go up and get it. But that's the only place. That's the only place that you'd get snow and ice in olden times, is that you'd go up a mountain and you'd collect it. Now, you know, and just to show like, this, for example, is Mount Kilimanjaro, and that's Africa right there, in the middle, hot, it's in Tanzania. So you just got to go above the line and get ice. Now, I'm trying to think like let's see, what height ice form? What height does ice form? On a mountain. But it's funny because the snow line is approximately 4,500 meters or 15,000 feet. So could Dragonstone have a mountain that's higher than 4,500 meters? I don't know. One thing as well is the volcano is active. You'd think that would like heat up the mountain and like, but that might be it. Because otherwise it's pretty tough. You got to ship that stuff from someplace far away. Preston is the voice of an angel. I haven't really like, I used to have an okay voice. It's been unpracticed for decades, but I would never say I had a good voice, but like I tried out for musicals in high school and college and was cast in musicals in the chorus. So I had a passable voice. Nothing where I would ever get a lead, nothing where they'd be like, get that guy out of here. It was just like I could carry a tune when I was young, but it's been a long time since I've practiced singing. You just don't. I used to sing in my car, screaming when I was young, and it was pretty good at practicing getting me to getting me some musicals. Does being knighted by someone in particular mean anything more? Jamie, Dane, Gregor, Rhaegar. I think I don't know if it means too much other than this person is vouching for your honor. The person giving the who knighted you as a letter of recommendation letter. And so it's supposed to be like Gregor is the worst example of a knight, and he supposedly has the best example of a letter of recommendation. Jamie as well has one of the best letters of recommendation, and so that's kind of the fundamental purpose to it. Now, do I think there's anything else like magical about this like transition? No, I don't. Dunk is a great guy, and he's not really a knight. and that kind of thing. But I think it's more just to show that the 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 grossness of it, like and how being night doesn't mean anything. Um, oh, caves have ice. Okay, yeah, maybe they could go into a cave. Hmm. Um, deep down or something. Find something cold. Um, thumbs up. Thank you. Thank you. Um, not to be weird, but what shoe size does Preston wear? I bet it's like 15s. See, people are gonna somehow like in like think about um uh penis size or something. I have fairly small feet for my height. They're only like 12 and a half. They could store ice in ice cellars. Yeah, I imagine something like that to keep it from melting. I'm just I'm just like thinking, could you fill up a ship with ice, and how much is it gonna make? How long is it gonna make it? Um, oh, in Hawaii, the mountains go up to 4,000 meters as well. Yeah, yeah. So there's a geologist who did a bunch of PhD geologist who did a bunch of ice and fire stuff, and one thing that he says about Westeros that's really weird is that there's very little volcanic activity, and there's relatively few mountains, all things considered. And Dragonstone being the one place where there's like volcanic activity is a little odd. I mean, the mountains, I guess there's mountains in the Vale, but and the mountains of Dorne, I suppose, are highland areas. But it's a little weird that there's just not that many volcanoes. Like that's unusual to have an entire continent where the only place where there's a volcano is Dragonstone. So maybe it's just all concentrated in Dragonstone, and the Dragonstone mountains are just enormously high, and they've got snow on the top. Mm-mm-mm-mm. Um, yeah, don't hear much analysis about the songs, lyrics, musicians. Yeah, the all the little songs, like people don't really talk about their meanings like too much. Like if you're thinking like people talk about the Bear and the Maiden Fair some, but it's fairly simple. It's just a song about rape, but the little bit now little connections to the Brienne story. Um, did you ever get into sumo? I did not. What's weird is I remember going to the park in Japan, and like people that have fat kids will like try to practice them in sumo. How in school they always take the fat kid and they give him the tuba. You know, and you're like, oh, because he's gonna have the best breath for it, so we're just gonna put the fat kid on the tuba. It's like the same thing with with sumo, I guess in Japan. They're like, oh, my kid is fat. I guess I'm gonna try to put him into sumo. It's kind of weird. Dornishman's wife is so weird. I think the Dornishman wife is really weird, and I think like George's mentions of it is kind of weird. Like, there's this line in Dance with Dragons where Mance is getting burned, and John is like, oh, it made me think of it. He all of a sudden he started thinking of the Dornishman's wife, and it's like like that line. I was like, why does it make him think of the Dornishman's wife? Because there's not much in it. Dornishman's wife was fair as the sun, and her kisses were warmer than spring. Is the idea that the fire is kissing him and it's warmer than spring? Like, it's just kind of weird stuff. The Dornishman's blade was made of black steel, and its kiss was a terrible thing. What does that have to do with like Mance getting burned? What the taste of blood on his tongue. The brothers knelt by him and prayed his prayer, and he smiled and laughed and sung. Oh, brothers, my days here are done. the Dornishman's taken my wife. Is it the idea is that like these are his days are done? You know, it's just What chapters on the book gave you trouble, confused you the most the first time I read it? Trying to think of like moments when I was really confused, like on action. Um, I was confused the first time I read Bran 2, where he. Keep in mind, I was reading fast, and I didn't get that it was Jamie and Cersei, because they don't say, they just say the man. And even though there's other things in it, like, oh, he was a mirror of the queen, you know, that picks up the idea. But I was confused and didn't understand that it was brother and sister together. I think I was confused when Ned died. I was like, wait, what's going on? Why did the Arya chapter end, and what happened? So I think I reread that a bit, like trying to figure out what was going on. A lot of times when these big characters die, like when Catlin died, I think, I was like, what's going on? I think I reread the Dragon Tamer a bit, like trying to figure out what happened, because you're like, wait, what? Because then they go back to the information and you're like, what? And rereading that. So a lot of times it was when characters died, like really trying to make sure, because George is super ambiguous about it. But I'm trying to think like any other chapters where I'm just like, what's going on? Maybe Davos with the Shadow Baby birth, trying to figure out, because then they kind of jump forward in time, and there's a big, and they've not only have Storm's End, but they've like moved on. So there's a lot of I think big jumps in the plot where you're kind of like, wait, what happened? Where are they? Maybe like the Wayward Bride, for example, all of a sudden being like, wait, whoa, where are you? Maybe Reek 1, you know, that kind of stuff where you're just like kind of left and not knowing what's going on. Real talk, can Preston Jacobs juggle? I cannot. I was actually in a play in high school that the plot of it was about a boy who could juggle, and then he kind of has a nervous breakdown. And I was not one of the main characters, but like the guy who tried out for the lead, they asked on the little sheet, can you juggle? And he lied and he said yes. And so he got the role, and then he was like, crap, I got to learn how to juggle. And so he did, and he figured it out. But then because he's juggling in this and juggling balls were around, everybody was trying to juggle like during this play. And I could just never get it. I could never get any of it. I was not good at it. Not good at it at all. You know, I tried. But some things I'll never get. And there's some things like that. Like I've never been good at drumming, and I've tried drumming quite a bit. And like a friend of mine who became who was a pretty good drummer was like, I don't know, the first time I sat in front of drums, I just like got it. And I was like, okay, because I just can't. I just don't get it. Sir Quentin Coharis, Sons Valerian, was a knight on Dragonstone at the start of the conquest. Why would there be knights on Dragonstone if it's settled by Valyrians? That is a intriguing question. An intriguing question indeed. Quentin Coharis, first Lord of Harrenhal, head of House Coharis. Sir Quentin was Master at Arms on Dragonstone during Aegon's conquest. Footnote. Quentin was an older man, as he had already had a grandson at the time. However, it's unknown when he held the position in the Targaryen household. It's possible that he was the one to train the arms half brothers Oris Baratheon in their youth. Um, huh. Now, I will grant that the House Coheri. So eliminating. Let's say he's not Valyrian. Would it make sense that Aegon was pulling in people before the conquest to like serve in their households like before that? And I would say yes. Like if you go like say you go 100, let's say we go 100 years before Aegon, and we're dealing with Daenerys the Dreamer. So they're going to leave, and they're going to go to Dragonstone. I don't know why they're able to just take that island, but nonetheless, they take the island, they land there. They need to build their freaking keep. Now, they didn't necessarily bring, I don't know, it's built in from Valyrian stone, so maybe they brought some people with them. But I imagine that you're going to need local labor. And so it may be that like the people that were on Dragonstone, the locals, before Targaryens even arrived, would have been Faith of the Seven followers. And that there would have been like knights, small folk, all of these people that were following the Faith of the Seven. Or even if they weren't, you needed labor, you're going to pull in some labor from the mainland. You know, like if I conquered, I don't know, like a small island. Let's say I conquered like Cyprus. You know, Cyprus is pretty big, but let's say I conquered Malta's got a huge population too. So I don't know. Like if you conquer Malta, you're going to bring in experts from the mainland to like do stuff. Probably, you know, maybe you're going to need some local, you know, contractors. Maybe the locals are already going to be followers of the Faith of the Seven. And so, you know, it makes sense that there would be some followers on the island already. So by the time Aegon's time, Coheres, according to semi-canon sources, Valyrian descent. What's the semi-canon source on that? How semi-canon sources? What? This is weird. And then they tell me nothing. The source is Citadel. Huh. I mean, sounds maybe, you know, but even if he's not, I guess you still have like, let's say they're brought over as servants from House Targaryen. You know, you still got the local religion. You still got stuff going on in the mainland. You're still gonna have communication back and forth. So I don't think it's impossible that you'd have a guy be a knight. You know, where you arrive and you want to get good training. You send him off to the Westeros mainland. And you get him trained. I mean, the Master at Arms at Winterfell was a knight as well. Just because that's where the line of training is gonna be through. So I think the why is just, well, there's going to be a Faith of the Seven people on the island before, and you're going to get experts from the mainland anyway. So there's my answer. What's your opinion on the best and worst chapters in A Song of Ice and Fire? My favorite chapters are, I like a few that, you know, big epic things happen. Like I love the last Daenerys chapter of Game of Thrones. I love the Drowned Man, where Euron is crowned king. You know, I love those kind of epic stories where stuff is built up and happens. But I also love really fun chapters where people are talking. Like I love Cersei 4. I love the Osha chapters and stuff like that where there's good characterization. So I think that's the best, is when something happens or you've got really good characterization. And so I think the worst is when just nothing really happens in a chapter, and like nothing, the characterization is just so. So like, I think that Daenerys 3, A Dance with Dragons, is a pretty useless chapter. It hardly advances the plot at all. That's the one where Zaro comes and, they get Karth throws in with Marine, which who cares if Karth is there or not? Old Gis is there. It doesn't matter. Tolos is there. You didn't need Karth there. It's just Zaro is getting I like Zaro. It's interesting to have him back, but the chapter for the most part is kind of useless, and you've got one good character. You've got Zaro. I think there's a few others where it's just I think John 2 is a waste of time, considering we already got most of the information on it from the Sam chapter. So they're kind of forgettable, boring chapters. I think there's some Storm of Swords Catlin chapters that are forgettable. Some Clash of Kings Arya chapters that are forgettable. So it's like, if you don't have like good characterization or memorable events, I think that's just like, you're just kind of spinning your wheels. I think that's kind of makes the worst chapters. I'm surprised Carmine didn't call in. Well, let's see what he's saying here. Did he send me anything? He's been lurking in the chat. I gotta go soon too. Oh well. Conquer Morocco. I don't know why, but they deserve it. Maybe liberate Western Sahara. I knew I could shame you into coming on.
Dude, fucking Will. I did not kick him off. I know he was joking, but there's always like a bunch of idiots in the comment section. It's gonna be Carmine, you bully.
He had lingered. I took 2 hours of his time. That's far more than needed.
He's a phenomenal editor. I just told him in the DMs, like, you should make a YouTube. By the way, eventually when I'm moving soon to like a new place, and when I get set up, I'll start streaming. Because I do want to get, I'll just bite the bullet and buy a fucking like used little Mac, because I really love the Ecamm software you have. Yeah. But when I do start streaming, I'd love to have people on, and people will tell you guys, the audience, you guys will know that whenever I see someone or meet someone who I think has like a good voice or they're very interesting, I always tell them, make a fucking YouTube channel, because you have no idea where it could fucking go. And I've been telling Will this for a long time, make a goddamn YouTube channel. So,
yeah. The oh, I wanted to ask you, because you read the Bravo chapter before it was like fully edited.
Don't ask me about this. Well, this is like a whole podcast we'll have to do. We'll save it for like a podcast. I'm down to. Well, I wanted to discuss with you a couple of news topics. We can add that to it. Okay.
Because I know that like you'd read it and you were like, it's great. Like, I think it's ready to go. And I was like, I just want some more editing, mainly from Will, to go in before I release it. And so like, and you're like, okay, but you're like, it's good already. I don't understand. And I just wanted to see if like you noticed the difference.
I have to go back and like compare it. Because I know what happens in it. He just like George R. Martinified it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
I have to go back and compare it, but yeah, no. From what I'll take your word for it, but I know what basically happens in it. Is it that different?
Events wise, no. Just like writing and feel wise, it just changes a little. Like all the events are the same. I mean, other than like moving a fountain is like the biggest like change. Nothing much else changed. Yeah.
Gotcha. By the way, you're not gonna release the Barry
I
finale?
will. I will this week.
discussion thing?
I posted the other stuff, so I'll probably release it this week.
And Sam gets 2 videos of you going into it.
Well, it was super long, so I
Mm,
had I didn't want to like have a 2 hour thing. I was just too tired to do
I gotcha.
like it all at once. So yeah, sorry. Getting some dun, 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 dun. Let's see here. Huh. I thought somebody said something about their super chat. But okay. Do you think there is a brewing religious war in the north between old gods and faith with Manderley Tully intermarriage? I don't know if there is enough time, honestly, for a kind of Faith of the Seven old gods kind of war. Like if there's any kind of dispute, it would be like R'hllor followers, old gods, right? And then the others are all coming in really soon. So I don't know. Like even though George has like spent his time establishing how all the religions are fucked up across the board, it's like the interfaith wars so far, like I don't know how much time there is for them right now. Plus he kind of establishes that these wars are like personality driven rather than actually like doctrine driven, which is kind of the amazing thing so far, that there's no like real doctrine driven war. And for the most part, like people like Stannis being a R'hllor follower, although it's mentioned to people and like they don't like it too much, it doesn't really affect their decisions too much. I mean, a couple lords here and there, like like Lord Sunglass, or whatever. But like, other than that, like like it doesn't affect things too much. Everybody just wants to go with the winners, and they don't really care. So Carmine, what political thing did you want to talk about?
Are we getting into politics already? God, God, already. Really? I mean, first off, you're not really a political guy, so I don't know where this is coming from.
I know.
Well, to be fair, I actually did message you. I called you yesterday to ask you about if they're gonna fucking take. Is this it? Is this the smoking gun with Trump? There's no way. His luck has run out, but there's no way. I was unfortunately, because I fucking hate Destiny, but every now and then he will have a good video. He had on this one guy, esports Batman, who was going into the whole thing. There's no way they're throwing Trump in jail. Like, that's not going to happen. If anything, house arrest. House arrest.
Something like house arrest. I mean, if they throw him in jail, it would be like for a month. Like I could see an outside chance of like for a month. Just to
right, but this is also like untreaded ground. Like, where we go from here, how would the jail look like? Because it'll probably look like a Norwegian jail where he has like cable TV and Xbox and shit.
Yeah.
Like, so what does that look like? What does a presidential prison look like? Like, does he flee to Russia? That I feel like that's the logical next step. I would love that.
I mean, he's definitely a flight risk, but we'll see. I think what he's hoping for, the thing is if he's going to do something even dumber. So he kind of already said like, see you Tuesday, as if like he wants his supporters to cause more political violence, like January 6th, And so if he's dumb, and he is dumb, because he wouldn't be in this situation if he wasn't dumb. If he's dumb, he will incite more violence, and something will happen. Now, what I think will happen is that fewer people are going to show up than he thinks, and he's going to, nothing, and there won't be any violence, because the last time people showed up for violence, the book was thrown at a lot of people, and people understood that like, oh, this is not pretend anymore. So,
You know, it's funny. I think, if anything, I feel like somehow he's going to avoid all of this, but everyone around him will not. Like, they will get everybody around him, and he will get out of it like just a slap on the wrist. And that's what's funny about like his allies. How does his allies not realize that he burns everyone he touches? That's so dumb.
So
dude.
in the Republican mindset, they're like, okay, what their dream situation is that like Trump gets disqualified, but they can be like, oh, it's so unfair what they did with Trump, and then they're gonna get all his supporters. That's what they're all sitting around drooling about. They're like, oh, if I could just get Trump's supporters. That's what I want.
That's what they run on, pardoning Trump.
Yeah, or something, or like, you know. So that's the thing, right? They don't want to like bash Trump because they're scared that they're going to lose Trump supporters, because there are people that are just in it for Trump and nobody else. They're like not really Republicans, they're Trumpists, you know. And so it's somehow they think they can steal those guys. I don't know if that's, you know, really possible.
You know who's the most realistic Republican right now? And I never thought I'd say this because I remember back in 2015, 2016 when she was super pro-Trump, and now she's the most realistic person, Ann Coulter. Did you see what she tweeted?
Oh, Ann Coulter. Yeah. I've seen her. She's been kind of anti-Trump for a long time.
I remember her going on Bill Maher, and everyone was asking, okay, who's going to be president? Everyone's like, well, and Ann Coulter's like, Donald Trump. Donald Trump is totally going to take it, blah, 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 blah. And everyone just laughed at her, and she was correct, of course. But no, she's done a complete 180 on that. Which,
I mean, she's still a horrible human being. She'll say like, oh, Trump did a bunch of great things. He's just a horrible, like, buffoon. And so she doesn't like him because he's a buffoon. But she likes all the things he did, you know. So her Ann Coulter's tweet today is hush money case BS, January 26th incitement case BS, Georgia election interference case BS, openly defying a subpoena for documents not BS. That's so. Is Ann Coulter a thing? Not really.
You scroll down a little bit, and she goes, last month Trump told the cheering crowd, I did finish the wall. I built the wall. Here's a fat check. He didn't. Damn, Ann Coulter. She's going in.
Yeah. Now, I mean, like I said, she's horrible. She's horrible, but but yeah, she's still a thing. She's been kind of replaced by. That's the thing, is there's only enough space for a certain number of the right-wing talking heads, and when one goes, another, they're just replaced by another. Like it doesn't matter. Like, you know, you get rid of Bill O'Reilly and Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson, by the way, before he, you know, essentially took Bill O'Reilly's spot, was nothing. He was a failure. He was kicked out. His show on CNN, Crossfire, was canned because Jon Stewart made fun of it. And then he tried to get a bunch of other shows at different places, including one on PBS, where he was essentially like trying to pass himself off as centrist. And then he just like, he gets the spot, he gets lucky with his spot on Fox News, and he just like takes the spot. So it doesn't kind of matter who is the talking head. So Ann Coulter has been, she's been usurped by all the other people out there. Ben Shapiro, you know, like Ben Shapiro connects with people a lot more than she does. So yeah.
I hate the term alt-right adjacent because I think it's so lame, or I used to, but ever since, you know, Gamergate back in 2014, alt-right adjacent is definitely a thing, because alt-right adjacent, I've been called alt-right adjacent. You've been called alt-right adjacent. Believe it or not.
That's really weird. That's really weird.
It's especially me. Like remember, I won't say the YouTuber who called me right-wing, but you know who I'm talking about. I'm like, bro, I'm right. I'm right wing. Like, I could fucking collude with the Mexican cartels to get Joe Biden elected, and somehow I'd still fucking get called right wing. There's nothing I can do.
So once I once I had this friend on Facebook back in the day when people were more active on Facebook. This was close to 10 years ago.
What a
And
dick.
like this dude would he was constantly virtue signaling. Like he was constantly like posting and keep in mind like all of his friends are like left-leaning liberal people. Like okay, and he's constantly posting these like these you know all oriented around like feminism and like treatment of women. Like every post you'd be posting, and it's just like, dude, like what are you doing? Like you're preaching to the choir. We all agree with you, but two, like what's your angle? Are you trying to get laid? Like you trying to what are you doing? Anyway, he posts like something about how in Google, if you put in women can't, and it auto completes to like or women shouldn't, and it auto completes to like drive, vote, and whatever. And he posts like, oh, this is horrible. And I like respond to him. I'm like, dude, like Google autocomplete is not like a proper representation of society. I'm sorry. Like it's just like YouTube comments don't like represent society. Like you can't be like when people like, do you remember way back in the day when like that Cheerios commercial that had the black guy and the white woman that had a half black half white kid, and there's apparently like this big deal about that, and it's like the big deal was the fact that they read YouTube comments, and they're like, oh my gosh, backlash against like the Cheerios commercial. It's like, really? Like it was YouTube comments. Like you could find any video is gonna have like weird crazy stuff in it. Like you and I know about YouTube comments, and ours are some of the nicer YouTube comments. A regular YouTube video has much crazier out of left field crap compared to ours, just because we have a more niche audience. But I just post like I can't believe you're using like Google autocomplete as like a proper mirror for like what society like means. And he like sends this like long email to me about how I am a men's rights activist, and how I really need to look myself in the mirror and what a horrible person I am. And it's like, oh my God, dude. Like, so I think whoever thinks that like you're an alt-righter or something, it was just some offhanded comment you made randomly once. Like maybe use the B word. And
no, stop it! That's so ridiculous.
I think it's something like that, because the person you're talking about doesn't really know you. Had they really known you and talked with you, I think they'd be reasonable enough to know that like you're not that. I just think
I mean, the person that also called me right winger is a fucking weirdo drama queen on social media. But no, what I was saying is the alt right adjacent thing. You're right. Talking heads, there's only so much space, so many spaces for these people. But then you have the alt-right adjacent people who also get their space too, such as Neurotic and Bordering and these guys and Tim Pool. They're not really talking heads, but they're in that space too.
Sure. I mean, it's the attention economy, right? And I guess we're a part of it too. But like it's the everybody's bored in this world, and there's a fixed amount of attention that you can give, and everybody's trying to get it. Everybody's trying to get those clicks, and who's best at it? Ann Coulter is no longer best at it, So, Manderly to have a sept is one thing, but for Ned to build a sept in Winterfell is different. Can't be that untouchable in the eyes of the northern lords soon after a war that killed a lot of their kin. You are right that like Ned building a sept in Winterfell, the first sept in freaking 8,000 years, should have been a bigger deal than it is. It's not like Ned is the first person to marry an outsider. Like, we hear about Laura Royce, and so people definitely have married Faith of the Seven people, and they just didn't build a sept. They should have made a big deal about the sept, but Like nobody cared, I guess. I mean, and I imagine the sept was just burned down by Ramsay, and then no one built it again. And we're the septon was thrown in a well where he swam to safety, and he's living his best life. Septon Shale, living it up, still alive. What do you think the chances of Septon Shale being alive, Carmine?
Ask me these questions. Why are you asking these questions?
There's a crazy out there theory that after throwing Septon Shale in the well, because like Winterfell has all these pools, that maybe because he's a strong swimmer, he swam out of the well through some sort of like chamber and got out to the pools and like escaped, and that Septon Shale is alive.
No, like, wait, what is with these theories? People, George's lack of like putting out anything has been making people go crazy and looking for the smallest, like, insignificant character, and like maybe he survived that beheading. No, he didn't. And I'm also you don't help, by the way, with your Alardine stuff. You also don't help.
Look, I know for a fact. Look, I know that George didn't think about Alardine. He wrote Alardine thinking maybe he'd go somewhere with it, and then he just disappeared. It's the same as Septon Shale. There's not enough time. Not enough time. You know. So, by the way, I was reminded, because we've been talking about talking heads. There was an Onion article recently about parents teach like kids about like hip music that will make them completely disconnected from their peers, you know, or something like and they have a Talking Heads album. He's like, the parents are like introducing the Talking Heads to this little girl, and she's gonna have no connection with her like her own peers now, because they've taught her about the Talking Heads. And Carmine, for you, the Talking Heads was a
oh, here we go,
band from the 80s.
I was listening when like Will was like, all right, I'm gonna just tell you a bunch of songs that Carbide. He's right. I don't know any of those songs you were singing or you guys were into, because like,
do you know Burning Down the House?
You know, I probably
Burning
do.
Down
I just
the
don't know
House?
the name of it.
Okay.
Hold on. There's one song here I actually downloaded recently that I didn't know the name of this song, but I've heard it before. Sunshine of Your Love by Cream. Like, I didn't know the name of it. Of course, I've heard it before.
Yeah,
I just didn't know what it was called, right?
The thing is the human brain is very good at remembering melodies. In fact, there is a theory that the human brain actually knows more melodies than words. And I'm not talking about like you can just like come up with melodies or write them down. I'm saying like, we play a melody for you and you'd be like, oh yeah, that's familiar. You play another melody. Oh yeah, I've heard that too. You know, like, you know, you're familiar with and remember, your memory, your brain retains like all of these songs. Psycho Killer, yeah. No,
there's one song that I've heard 1,000 times.
What?
There's one song I heard like 1,000 times on like in a cartoon, and I never knew the name of the song until I had the Shazam app on my phone. Shazam is an app where if you hear a song, you don't know the name of it, just click the app and it'll like listen to it and tell you. The name of the song is Turkish March Mozart Rondo alla Turca, and it's the one that it's the piano. It goes it's that one. I never knew the name of it, but I've heard it 1,000 times. So I'm sure if I heard these songs that you and Will were going over, I'm sure I like. I don't know the songs.
Absolutely. I mean, it's like, I realized when, so I went, for the first, like a couple weeks ago, for the first time, my wife and we went to a movie, and for the first time in a long time, and we saw Guardians 3. And Guardians 3 was great. It's a great movie. But I realized, like, so James Gunn loves using music in his in his stuff. And then I kind of realized I was talking it through. I was like, oh, right. The music represents like in Guardians 3, the music moves into the 90s and then into the 2000s. And there's this progression in the music because in the first 2 movies, Peter Quill is only listening to the music that his mom gave him. And meaning he's like caught up with his mom. He's still obsessed with that trauma of the mom. It is represented in that music. And now that he's moving to new music, it means he's getting over the trauma. And it, and then I was like, yeah. And, and he did that and then I was like, oh, in Peacemaker when, fuck. Like, I was like, when Peacemaker is really into the music of his brother and the trauma of his brother, and he's listening to it, and I was like, oh my God, like James Gunn does the same thing over and over again. The music represents a point of trauma point. And then he's got to move beyond that trauma point. Oh gosh. Like, and I love both of them. I love Guardians of the Galaxy and I love Peacemaker. But I was like, oh my gosh, he did the same thing twice.
And he's gonna do it again when he does DC.
He is. He's absolutely all great artists reuse and redo. I mean, Jurassic Park is just Westworld, right? Not new Westworld, old Westworld. Old Westworld is Jurassic Park. Michael Crichton wrote a story about an amusement park where the cowboy robots go haywire and start killing everybody. And then he did Jurassic Park, where it's about an amusement park where the dinosaurs starts going crazy and start killing everybody. Let's see. Do you think if Al Gore had won 2 terms, would McCain have won following 2008 housing crisis, leading to Obama winning in 2012? That's a weird what ifs. I mean, I think if Al Gore won, and he did win, but had he taken office, 9/11 would have happened. Everyone would have praised Al Gore for his incredible handling of 9/11, just like they praised Bush for his incredible handling of 9/11. He would have been reelected in 2004. And then by 2008, they would have been really sick of a Democrat because that's just how it is. And so, McCain, whoever ran in 2008 as a Republican would probably be president at that point, I guess would be McCain or something. And then I don't know if housing crisis or anything like that would have led to necessarily Obama winning. Generally, people are reelected. You have to really screw up to not be to reelected. So I don't know. I think Al Gore probably would have been president for 2 terms. Would have had a great situation with the Supreme Court. Would have not been in the Iraq War. World would be a lot better because Al Gore was just a lot smarter than other people, and who knows? But then again, I don't know. Maybe he would have lost Congress at some point and not been able to do anything. I don't know. So, Billy and the Clonosaur. That's the South Park, or not the South Park, the Simpsons thing, where Principal Skinner writes Jurassic Park. And he's like, I've got this great idea for a book. It's about an amusement park with dinosaurs that goes haywire. I'm going to call it Billy and the Clonosaur. 9/11 conspiracies. 9/11 would not have happened if Al Gore took office. This is freaking weird. That's really weird. 9/11's happening no matter what. Where do you think House of the Dragon will end in the Fire and Blood story? So we talked about this a little bit before, but I think the if I were um planning things out, I would say, okay, season 2 ends with Rhaenyra taking um King's Landing, and then season 3 is like war, and you try to extend that out, and then because you've set this up to be Rhaenyra's um, story, you can't really have the whole 6 months later Aegon dies like you have in Fire and Blood. You know, you need to like just fast forward that. So I would think that you'd have Rhaenyra die in like episode 9 or episode 8 of the last season, and then the last couple episodes are wrapping everything up with like Aegon's final reign and Hour of the Wolf and stuff like that. Like, I just think that's kind of how it's going to be done. So, Carmine, you haven't watched the house that Dragon built or whatever, the behind the scenes thing yet?
I seen behind the scenes stuff, but it was like the 3, 4, 5 minute thing that was released on like YouTube. I do have the. I did download the thing, and I saw it there. It's fairly
I mean,
fairly
it's worth a watch. I don't know how much like behind the scenes stuff. Like it's just so on HBO. There's like for every episode. There's like the behind the scenes on how it was made, and it's between like 20 minutes and a half an hour each episode. Which just you're just like, oh my god, I can't believe how much work they put into everything. Even like really crappy ideas. Like, because there's just such money and then so many people working on it, you're like, oh my god, like the amount of effort. Like I watched episode 3, which has all the work they did for like Daemon's battle and the Stepstones, the ridiculous battle, right? Where you're just like, it's such a dumb idea. It's such a dumb idea to start with. Like, Daemon is going to go out there as a one-man army, and like everyone's going to run out of the caves, and there's going to be this like huge battle, and he's just going to survive all of this crap. It's so stupid conceptually. One of the dumbest things of season 1. But like the commitment and how much money and time and filming and like makeup and everything that went into that. You're like, and just watching like, oh my god, I can't believe how much they did on that. It was just insane. But one of the interesting things I saw, Carmine, was do you remember how I complimented the crew for the White Stag thing? Do you remember the White Stag?
Yeah, where Rhaenyra sees the White Stag, and yeah, and she lets it go, right?
The thing is, I was really impressed actually, because I was like, huh, that's a really weird small thing that Ryan Condal picked up from a Game of Thrones. That that in a Game of Thrones they think that they see a white stag, and they go to they think it's really fortuitous because of like Joffrey. And so they go off and think that is it because Joffrey's like coming of age or something that they think it's something great like this? I have to bring up the exact quote. It's really quite small, and I was like impressed, because I was like, huh, they really read their books if they know about the White Hart. Grandmaster Parcell stirred uneasily. The White Hart has been sighted in the Kingswood, and Lord Renly and Sir Barristan have joined the king to hunt it, along with Prince Joffrey and Sandor Clegane. Now, I was baffled by this, because I was like, oh, that's, the boar comes out and nearly attacks Rhaenyra. They must be all referencing the hunt that Robert went on in a Game of Thrones when they did this. Anyway, apparently I was completely wrong. Like, they just fucking accidentally hit the White Stag thing. Like, Ryan Condal, or at least or some other writer put it in, and Ryan Condal didn't realize it, because Ryan Condal straight up says, this is not from George's mythology. We took the White Stag from Arthurian legend. And I was like, what? Like, how is that possible? Do they, what, really? Like, they just accidentally stumbled into the same thing? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, now I'm doing. That's a happy coincidence. And we praised Ryan Condal for going into like Fire and Blood and taking like little like moments. I always harken back to the one about the oh fuck, I forgot the woman's name, but the woman that gets captured by pirates and becomes like the bed slave, and then she eventually rules all the Least. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Like they took little things like that from Fire and Blood, so you expected him to have like know the other 5 books in and out, but I
That's
guess
true.
not.
Sansa dreams of Joffrey killing the White Hart. They found the remains of the White Hart, but some wolves had eaten it first. You know, the eunuch's smile flickered. You're kind to ask, my lord, but my tale is long and sad, and I have treasons to discuss. The master of the king's galley, White Hart, plots to slip anchor 3 days. So they bring back the White Hart as a ship later. It's just, it's very odd. And then, but somehow Ryan Condal didn't know it was from. He either didn't know it was from a Game of Thrones, or it was a remarkable coincidence.
Just a
Because
remarkable
he actually
coincidence.
talks about him writing the script, like in the same like conversation. It's so odd. Yeah, I'm sure they're both getting it from the Arthurian legend, but it's just such an odd thing to like. I praised him. I was like, oh, that's a really like small little snippet. Like good on them. And then it's like, no, just a coincidence. Just a coincidence.
By the way, you did miss one super chat from this person's name is a HFNP.
Capital.
Yeah. Is it HFNP? Yeah, that's their name. I don't know why it's not showing up.
Okay, let me see.
All the way down. There it is.
There it is. I'm sorry. My favorite meme theory is the Hightowers blasting Euron's fleet with hidden cannons and powder guns in an anticlimactic ending to his magic. Oh fuck, what was that from? Because there's so that comes from something. That comes from like the siege of Malta. So what you're talking, I read about this recently actually, because so for many years Malta was under siege from various invading powers. You know, Arabs invade at some point, and the Knights Templar are able to like fend them off because they actually had cannons hidden behind walls, and so when ships came by, they like blasted them. Using that. So that's from history. Whoever had that theory like took a little bit from history there, but I've never seen it as in a meme with regards to Ice and Fire. But it's funny that you mention it, because I was thinking of the same thing, because I was thinking of what's the battle in Old Town going to look like, and how do people on ships take cities? Like there was like this kind of like random thought like this, because it's just not immediately clear to me. Like, how would a bunch of people on a ship conquer a city? Like, I can understand raiding, like getting off, raiding, get back on the ship before people can respond, but how do you conquer a city? And so I was like looking into like famous naval sieges, and the Malta one came up with the hidden cannons. Of course, would the Hightowers have gunpowder or wildfire or something to do that? Would the story have been better if Osha was replaced with Val, who fled south and defeated Robb? Listen to this all the way from I'm all the way at the top. So I was like, I answered that 3 hours ago. The fandom hates Cat for stupid reasons. Which other characters do you think get a bad rap? And who is liked for stupid reasons? I think most of the women are not liked for bad reasons. I think there's a lot of Sansa hate. I think there's a lot of Cat hate. I think there's a lot of Daenerys hate. that you'll see that just other characters just don't get. Like, you know, like I say, like Tyrion is a really dumb character. Does really dumb things. Nice Knights Hospitallers, Preston. Sorry that I'm mixing up my Maltese Knights. I'm sorry. Sorry. But yes. Yes, I think it was the Knights Hospitallers, but yes, there are different knight groups. And but what characters do I think get a bad rap? I think people like Jaime more than they should for his, even though he hasn't quite done enough to overcome the evils he's done. So I think but I think he's just, you know, he's a swashbuckling guy, so everybody kind of likes him, and he's funny. So I think that, you know, people like him more than they should at this point, and I think people choose to hate some of the female characters. You know, I met someone in the fandom who chose the alias Fat Walda, and I asked her, I was like, oh, why'd you choose Fat Walda? Because, you know, a lot of people don't really like Fat Walda, and she had this like very good explanation on how that's ridiculous. Fat Walda like has done nothing wrong to anybody. She's very savvy. You know, she's made like you know, correct political moves to become like the Lady of the North. Like, people should really be praising her for playing the Game of Thrones correctly and doing, and really the only thing that people don't like about her is that she's fat, you know, but George R. R. Martin's fat, and her fatness is the reason she was chosen and stuff like that. So, you know, so I was like, okay, you know, it's a good reason, you know, it's like, fair enough. Fat Walda, I guess she, you know, she's cool. Poor Fat Walda. I mean, the mistake in the end was like not doing enough research on the Boltons, but I guess no one knew about the Boltons. No one knew about how bad they were. Like, Roose Bolton had a good reputation before that. So, Ned is liked for stupid reasons. That's kind of true. But you know, like I say, it's just the regular characters. You know, most readers are, you know, straight guys, and so, you know, who have like fairly middle of the road morality structure, so they connect with those. They connect with Ned, and they connect with Jon, because those two characters see the world much in the same way that the viewer does, you know, the reader does. The Hightowers use wildfire, shooting ships like the Byzantines did with Greek fire. I guess so. I mean, we don't really understand what even Greek fire was, you know, and or like what made Damascus steel so great. But it could be something like that. I do wonder, you know, do the you know, in the appendix it says that the Hightower studied all of these like magics and necromancy and stuff, which so, you know, it could be something like that. Greek fire, combustible compound for throwing weapons. Not really sure how it worked. Formula is like gone, you know. But I think that might be a good example when we eventually do the siege on Old Town, you know. So anyway, let's see. I've been on here for a while, so I'm going to do this last super chat, and then I'll say goodnight to everyone, and thank you to everyone for staying up so late. I really want House of the Dragon to end with Aegon III saying nope to royal progress, but that makes sense in the show's perspective. Yeah, I mean, I think they just like, the last scene will probably be like Aegon the Third, like on the throne, you know, with Corlys Velaryon as his like hand guiding him, and then that would be kind of the end. Would probably be like how I would end the show, you know. So, you know, so that's probably where I would do it. But the show is about Alicent and Rhaenyra, so you kind of need, even though Alicent dies much later and Rhaenyra dies much earlier, I guarantee we're going to see their deaths closer together, if not in years, in episodes, you know. So, all right, thank you everyone, thank you for staying with me, and I will see you all next time. Bye.